welcome back to another thrilling installment of Fraggoth Reads. That's right, that's what we're calling the new segment. I remember now. I had to look. So yes, long-time listeners have noticed a slight change in format. We're going, every single time we stream, we're doing the same book, not rotating through a selection of three. That's because my schedule is catch as catch can, and I figure let's try a year where every stream we do, we just try to plow through one book at a time instead of three at once. I think ultimately it is not going to change much about how many books get read in a year, although maybe it will. But volume is not necessarily the goal. Entertainment and enjoyment is the goal. Mine and yours. So this way, I won't be stuck reading a book for many, many months on end. Rarely am I ever stuck reading a book, but this way we get more variety. More books done in a shorter... Each individual book is done in a shorter time period. There we go. Whatever. Anyway, so we're reading Endymion by one Dan Simmons. He who made Hyperion / The Fall of Hyperion, which together are the Hyperion Cantos. So we've been introduced to one Raul, R-A-U-L, rhymes with Paul, Endymion. And he, after an incident where he was going to be executed, he has been rescued, but he has been given a task. His mission, should he choose to accept it, is... Let's read the whole thing out here. It'll be repeated to us more than once. Let's see. Okay. His task. Where are you? His task is to rescue Aenea, who is Martin Silenus's niece, I guess, for lack of a better term. Certainly he's her caretaker. So Martin Silenus is giving our boy Raul Endymion his task of rescue Aenea, because she went into the time tombs and is going to be coming out in, I don't know, like a day and a half at this point. So he's got to rescue her. He's got to find Earth and bring it back. He has to... Where are you? Find the missing technocore and stop the combined power of thousands of godlike AIs from doing whatever they're planning to do. And... Oh, yes, he's also to talk with the Ousters and see if they can offer Martin Silenus immortality. True immortality, not this born-again Christian bullshit. And let's see, what else? Oh, yes. He has to stop the Strike now and keep it from harming Aenea. The Shrike, you know, the Shrike. The one, the only, the it jiggers itself through time. Jukes and jinks through time and can do whatever it wants. Yes, that one. Let's see, what else? Oh, yeah, and stop the Pax, which are the major power in the galaxy right now. So he has his job, his work cut out for him. However, he does have a condition, and that is to have a Bettik, android Bettik, to come with him. Because Mr. Bettik expressed an interest in going adventuring. And so Raul is like, let's take the guy along. So, meanwhile, this guy, Federico DeSoya, Father Captain Federico DeSoya, which I miswrote in the stream description. It is Father, no hyphen, Captain, Federico, space, lowercase de, space, capital S, Oya. I'll get it right later. He has been summoned by faster-than-light courier to go back to Pacem. Now, the problem with these faster-than-light couriers is that to use them, you die. Because it rips you apart, turns you into goo. But fortunately, the Pax, and indeed the Catholic Church, has... they have a way around this whole death thing, because they've got a slightly tweaked version of the crucifixes that the Bikura had, which lets them come back from death without all the other side effects, which, as we learned, weren't exactly side effects. They were intended design features as far as the techno-core was concerned. But at any rate, the Pax have figured out how to make it so that that doesn't happen. So if you die, you come back. So they literally offer immortality. And with that, I think we can get rolling. That gets us more or less caught up. I left a few things out. If you want to get caught up, listen to the previous installment, even though there's a weird, awkward gap where my mic decided to stop working. My apologies. I'll keep a closer eye on that this time. Anyway, soon I'm going to have to start setting up the slideshow for covers, because at a certain point I won't have to worry about the minor spoilers the covers have. Some of them. So we will go and set forth onto Chapter 9 of Endymion. Nine. Born again, seeing, literally, with the wondering eyes of a child, Father Captain Federico DeSoya crosses the Piazza San Pietro between the elegant arcs of Bernini's colonnade and approaches St. Peter's Basilica. The day is beautiful with cold sunlight, pale blue skies, and a chill in the air. Pacem's single inhabitable continent is high, 1,500 meters above standard sea level, and the air is thin but absurdly rich in oxygen. And everything DeSoya sees is bathed in rich afternoon light that creates an aura around the stately columns, around the heads of the hurrying people, light that bathes the marble statues in white and brings out the brilliance of the red robes of bishops and the blue, red, and orange stripes of the Swiss Guard troopers standing at parade rest. Light that paints the tall obelisk in the center of the plaza, the fluted pilasters of the basilica's facade, and ignites into brilliance the great dome itself, rising more than 100 meters above the level of the plaza. Pigeons take wing and catch this rich, horizontal light as they wheel above the plaza, their wings now white against the sky, now dark against the glowing dome of St. Peter's.
Throngs move by on either side, simple clerics in black cassocks with pink buttons, the bishops in white with red trimming, cardinals in blood scarlet and deep magenta, citizens of the Vatican in their ink-black doublets, hose, and white ruffs, nuns in rustling habits and soaring white gull wings. Male and female priests in simple black, Pax officers in dress uniforms of scarlet and black, such as DeSoya himself wears this day, and a scattering of lucky tourists or civilian guests, privileged to attend a papal mass, dressed in their finest clothes, most in black, but all of a richness in cloth that makes even the blackest fiber gleam and shimmer in the light. The multitudes move toward the soaring basilica of St. Peter's, their conversation muted, their demeanor excited but somber. A papal mass is a serious event. With Father Captain DeSoya this day, only 4 days after his fatal leave-taking from Task Force Magi and 3 days after his resurrection, are Father Baggio, Captain Margaret Wu, and Monsignor Lucas Oddi. Baggio, plump and pleasant, is DeSoya's resurrection chaplain. Wu, lean and silent, is aide-de-camp to Pax Fleet Admiral Marusin. And Oddi, 87 standard years old but still healthy and alert, is the factotum and undersecretary to the powerful Vatican Secretary of State, Simone Augustino Cardinal Lordusami. It is said that Cardinal Lordusami is the second most powerful human being in the Pax, the only member of the Roman Curia to have the ear of His Holiness, and a person of frightening brilliance. The Cardinal's power is reflected in the fact that he also acts as prefect for the Sacra Congregatio Pro Gentium Evangelizione de Se de Propaganda Fide, the legendary Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, or De Propaganda Fide. To Father Captain DeSoya, the presence of these two powerful people is no more surprising or astounding than the sunlight on the facade above him, as the four climb the broad steps to the basilica. The crowd, already quiet, stills to silence as they file through into the vast space, walk past more Swiss Guard, both in ornamental and battle dress, and move into the nave. Here, even the silence echoes, and DeSoya is moved to tears at the beauty of the great space and of the timeless works of art they pass on the way to the pews. Michelangelo's Pietà, visible in the first chapel to the right. Arnolfo de Cambio's ancient bronze of St. Peter, its right foot polished to the point of being worn away by centuries of kisses. And, lit brilliantly from beneath, the striking figure of Giuliana Falconieri Santa Vergine, sculpted by Pietro Campi in the 16th century, more than 1,500 years earlier. Father Captain DeSoya is weeping openly by the time he crosses himself with holy water and follows Father Baggio to their reserved pew. The 3 male priests and the female Pax officer kneel in prayer as the last scuffling and coughing dies in the vast space. The basilica is in near darkness now, with only pinpoint halogen spots illuminating the art and architectural treasures glowing like gold. Through his tears, DeSoya looks at the fluted pilasters and the dark bronze Baroque columns of Bernini's Baldacchino, the gilded and ornate canopy over the central altar where only the Pope can say Mass, and contemplates the wonder of the last 24 hours since his resurrection.
That's okay, my microphone can do weird things. There we are. It was leaning, listing, sagging, and contemplates the wonder of the last 24 hours since his resurrection. There has been pain, yes, and confusion, as if he were recovering from a particularly disorientating blow to the head, and the pain was more general and terrible than any headache, as if every cell in his body remembered the indignity of death and even now rebelled against it. But there has been wonder as well. Wonder and awe at the smallest things. The taste of the broth Father Baggio had fed him,
The first night of Pacem's pale blue sky through the rectory windows, the overwhelming humanness of the faces he had seen that day, the voices he had heard. Father Captain DeSoya, although a sensitive man, has not wept since he was a child of 5 or 6 standard years. But he weeps this day, weeps openly and unashamedly. Jesus Christ has given him the gift of life for the second time. The Lord God has shared the sacrament of resurrection with him. This faithful, honorable man from a poor family on a backwater world, and DeSoya's individual cells now seem to remember the sacrament of rebirth as well as the pain of death. He is suffused with joy. The Mass begins in an explosion of glory, trumpet notes cutting through the expectant silence like golden blades, choral voices raised in triumphant song, ascending organ notes reverberating in the great space, and then a series of brilliant lights switching on to illuminate the Pope and his retinue as they emerge to celebrate Mass. DeSoya's first impression is of how young the Holy Father is. Pope Julius XIV is, of course, a young man in his 30s, despite the fact that he has been pope almost continuously for more than 250 years, his reign broken only by his own death and rebirth for 8 coronations, first as Julius VI, following the 8-year reign of the anti-pope Teilhard I, and again as Julius in each succeeding incarnation. As DeSoya watches the vital young man celebrate Mass, the Pax Captain thinks of the story of Julius's ascendancy, learned through both official church history and the banned poem The Cantos, which every literate teenager reads at the risk of his soul, but reads nonetheless. In both versions, Pope Julius had been, prior to his first resurrection, a young man named Lenar Hoyt, who had come to the priesthood in the shadow of Paul de Ré, a charismatic Jesuit archaeologist and theologian. De Ré had been a proponent of St. Teilhard's teachings that humankind had the potential to evolve toward the Godhead. Indeed, according to de Ré, when he ascended to the throne of St. Peter after the fall, humans could evolve to the Godhead. It was precisely this heresy which Father Lenar Hoyt, after becoming Pope Julius VI, had worked to wipe out after his first resurrection. Both accounts, church history and the forbidden cantos, agreed that it had been Father de Ré, during his exile on the outback world of Hyperion, who had discovered the symbiote called the cruciform. There the histories diverged beyond reconciliation. According to the poem, de Ré had received the cruciform from the alien creature called the Shrike. According to the Church's teachings, the Shrike, a representation of Satan if ever there was one, had nothing to do with the discovery of the cruciform, but had later tempted both Father de Ré and Father Hoyt. The Church's history reported that only de Ré had succumbed to the creature's treachery. The cantos told, in their confused mix of pagan mythology and garbled history, of how de Ré had crucified himself in the flame forests of Hyperion's Pinion Plateau, rather than return the cruciform to the church. According to the pagan poet Martin Silenus, this was to save the church from reliance on a parasite in the place of faith. According to the church history, which DeSoya believed, de Ré had crucified himself to end the pain the symbiote caused him, and, in alliance with the Shrike demon, to prevent the church, which de Ré considered his enemy after having excommunicated him for falsifying archaeological records, from regaining its vitality through the discovery of the sacrament of resurrection. According to both stories, Father Lenar Hoyt had traveled to Hyperion in search of his friend and former mentor. According to the blasphemous cantos, Hoyt had accepted de Ré's cruciform as well as his own, but had later returned to Hyperion in the last days before the fall to beg the evil Shrike to relieve him of his burden. The Church pointed out the falseness of that, explaining how Father Hoyt had courageously returned to face down the demon in its own lair. Whatever the interpretation, facts recorded that Hoyt had died during that last pilgrimage to Hyperion. De Ré had been resurrected carrying Father Hoyt's cruciform as well as his own, and had then returned during the chaos of the fall to become the first anti-pope in modern history. Duray/Teilhard I's 9 standard years of heresy had been a low point for the Church, but after the false pope's death by accident, Lenar Hoyt's resurrection from the shared body had led to the glory of Julius VI. The discovery of the sacramental nature of what Duray had called a parasite, Julius's revelation from God, still understood only by the innermost sancta of the Church, of how the resurrections could be guided to success, and the subsequent growth of the Church from a minor sect to the official faith of humanity. Father Captain Federico DeSoya watches the Pope, seemingly a man younger than himself, lift the Eucharist high above the altar, and the Pax commander shivers in the chill of sheer wonder. Father Baggio had explained that the overwhelming sense of newness and wonder that was the after-effect of Holy Resurrection would wear off to some extent in the days and weeks to come, but that the essential feeling of well-being would always linger, growing stronger with each rebirth in Christ. DeSoya could see why the Church held suicide as one of its most mortal sins, punishable by immediate excommunication, since the glow of nearness to God was so much stronger after tasting the ashes of death. Resurrection could easily become addictive if the punishment for suicide were not so terrible. Still aching from the pain of death and rebirth, his mind and senses literally lurching from vertigo, Father Captain DeSoya watches the papal mass approach the climax of communion, St. Peter's Basilica filling now with the same burst of sound and glory with which the service began, and knowing that in a moment he will taste the body and blood of Christ as transubstantiated by the Holy Father himself. The warrior weeps like a little child. After the Mass, in the cool of the evening, with the sky above St. Peter's the color of pale porcelain, Father Captain DeSoya walks with his new friends in the shadows of the Vatican gardens.
Federico, Father Baggio is saying, the meeting we are about to have is very important. Very, very important. Is your mind clear enough to understand the important things that will be said?
Yes, says DeSoya, my mind is very clear. Monsignor Lucas Audi touches the young Pax officer's shoulder.
Federico, my son, are you certain of this? We can wait another day if we must.
DeSoya shakes his head. His mind is reeling with the beauty and solemnity of the Mass he has just witnessed. His tongue still tastes the perfection of the Eucharist and the wine. He feels that Christ is whispering to him at this very moment, but his thoughts are clear. I am ready, he says. Captain Wu is a silent shadow behind Audi.
Very good, says the Monsignor, and nods to Father Baggio. We will need your services no longer, Father. Thank you.
Baggio nods, bows slightly, and leaves without another word. In his perfect clarity, DeSoya realizes that he will never see his kindly resurrection chaplain again, and a surge of pure love brings more tears to his eyes. He is grateful to the darkness that hides these tears. He knows he must be in control for the meeting. He wonders where this important conference will be held. In the fabled Borgia apartment? In the Sistine Chapel? In the Vatican offices of the Holy See? Perhaps in the Pax Liaison offices in what had once been called the Borgia Tower. Monsignor Lucas Audi stops at the far end of the gardens, waves the others to a stone bench near where another man waits, and Father DeSoya realizes that the seated man is Cardinal Lordusami, and that the conference is happening here in the scented gardens. The priest goes to his knee on the gravel in front of the Monsignor and kisses the ring on the extended hand. "Rise," says Cardinal Lordusami. He is a large man with a round face and heavy jowls, and his deep voice sounds like the voice of God to DeSoya. "Be seated." says the cardinal. DeSoya sits on the stone bench as the others remain standing. To the cardinal's left, another man sits in the shadows. DeSoya can make out a Pax uniform in the dim light, but not the insignia. He is vaguely aware of other people, at least one seated and several standing, within the deeper shadows of a bower to their left.
Father DeSoya,
begins Simone Augustino, Cardinal, oh my gosh, such long names.
Father DeSoya,
begins Simone Augustino, Cardinal Lordusami, nodding toward the seated man on his left.
may I present Fleet Admiral William Lee Marusen.
DeSoya is on his feet in an instant, saluting, holding himself at rigid attention. My apologies, Admiral, he manages through a clenched jaws. I did not recognize you, sir.
At ease, says Marusen. Be seated, Captain.
DeSoya takes his seat again, but gingerly now, awareness of the company he is in burning through the joyous fog of resurrection like hot sunlight.
We are well pleased with you, Captain, says Admiral Marusen.
Thank you, sir, mumbles DeSoya, glancing around the shadows again. There are definitely others watching from the bower.
As are we,
rumbles Cardinal Lordusami.
That is why we have chosen you for this mission.
Mission, Your Excellency? Says DeSoya. He feels dizzy with tension and confusion.
As always.
As always, you will be serving both the Pax and the Church, says the Admiral, leaning closer in the dim light.
The world of Pacem has no moon, but the starlight here is very bright as DeSoya's eyes adapt to the dim light. Somewhere a small bell rings. Oh, I see. Somewhere a small bell rings monks to vespers. Lights from the Vatican buildings bathe the dome of St. Peter's in a soft glow.
As always, continues the Cardinal, you will report to both the Church and the military authorities.
The huge man pauses and glances at the Admiral. What is my mission, Your Excellency? Admiral, asks DeSoya, not knowing which man to address. Marusen is his ultimate superior, but Pax officers usually defer to high officials of the Church. Neither man answers, but Marusen nods toward Captain Margaret Wu, who stands several meters away near a hedge. The Pax officer steps forward quickly and hands DeSoya a holocube.
Activate it,
says Admiral Marusen. DeSoya touches the underside of the small ceramic block. The image of a female child mists into existence above the cube. DeSoya rotates the image, noticing the girl's dark hair, large eyes, and intense gaze. The child's disembodied head and neck are the brightest things in the darkness of the Vatican gardens. Father DeSoya looks up and sees the glow from the holo in the eyes of the Cardinal and the Admiral.
Her name? Well, we are not sure of her name, says Cardinal Lordusami. How old does she look to you, Father?
DeSoya looks back at the image, considers her age, and converts the years to standard. Perhaps 12, he guesses. He has spent little time around children since he was one. 11, standard. Cardinal Lordusami nods.
She was 11 standard on Hyperion when she disappeared more than 267 standard years ago, Father.
DeSoya looks back at the holo. So the child is probably dead. He could not remember if the Pax had brought the sacrament of resurrection to Hyperion 260 years ago, or certainly grown and reborn. He wonders why they are showing him a holo of this person as a child from centuries ago. He waits.
This child is the daughter of a woman named Braun Lamia, says Admiral Marusen. Does the name mean anything to you, Father?
It does, but for a moment DeSoya cannot think why. Then the verses of the cantos come to mind, and he remembers the female pilgrim in that story. Yes, he says, I remember the name. She was one of the pilgrims with His Holiness during that final pilgrimage before the fall.
Cardinal Lordusamy leans closer and folds pudgy hands together on his knee. His robe is bright red where the light from the hollow touches it.
Braun Lamia had sexual intercourse with an abomination, rumbles the Cardinal. A cybrid, a cloned human construct whose mind was an artificial intelligence residing in the technocore. Do you remember the history and the banned poem?
Father DeSoya blinks. Is it possible that they have brought him here to the Vatican to punish him for reading the cantos when he was a child? He confessed the sin 20 years ago, did penance, and never read the forbidden work, and never reread the forbidden work. He blushes.
Cardinal Lordusamy chuckles. It is all right, my son. Everyone in the church has committed this particular sin. Curiosity is too great, the appeal of the forbidden too strong. We have all read the banned poem. Do you remember that the woman Lamia had carnal relations with the cybrid of John Keats?
Vaguely, says DeSoya, and then hurriedly adds, Your Excellency.
And do you know who John Keats was, my son?
No, Your Excellency.
He was a pre-Hedgera poet, says the Cardinal in his rumble of a voice.
High overhead, the blue plasma breaking tails of 3 Pax dropships cut across the starfield. Father Captain DeSoya does not even have to glance at them to recognize the make and armament of the ships. He is not surprised that he had not remembered the details of the poet's name from the forbidden cantos. Even as a boy, Federico DeSoya had been more interested in reading about machines and great space battles than anything pre-Hedgera, especially poetry.
The woman in the blasphemous poem, Braun Lamia, not only had intercourse with the cybrid abomination, continued the Cardinal, but she bore the creature's child.
DeSoya raises his eyebrows. I did not know that cybrids... I thought they were... well... Cardinal Lordusamy chuckles.
Were sterile, he says, like androids. No, the AI obscenity.
There we are. Sorry about that. I'm going to take the page from the top in the vain hope that it wasn't longer than that.
And do you know who John Keats was, my son?
No, Your Excellency.
He was a pre-Hedgera poet, says the Cardinal in his rumble of a voice.
High overhead, the blue plasma braking tails of 3 Pax dropships cut across the starfield. Father Captain DeSoya does not even have to glance at them to recognize the make and armament of the ships. He is not surprised that he had not remembered the details of the poet's name from the forbidden cantos. Even as a boy, Federico DeSoya had been more interested in reading about machines and great space battles than anything pre-Hegera, especially poetry.
The woman in the blasphemous poem, Braun Lamia, not only had intercourse with the cybrid abomination, continued the cardinal, but she bore the creature's child.
DeSoya raises his eyebrows. I did not know that cybrids... I thought that they were... well... Cardinal Lord Dusamy chuckles.
Were sterile, he says, like androids? No, the AI obscenities had cloned the man, and the man impregnated this daughter of Eve.
DeSoya nods, although all this talk of cybrids and androids might as well be about griffins and unicorns for all he is concerned. These things existed once. To his knowledge, none could exist today. Father Captain DeSoya's mind races as he tries to imagine just what in God's universe all this talk of dead poets and pregnant women might have to do with him. As if answering DeSoya's mental query, Admiral Marusin says, "The girl whose image floats in front of you is that child, Captain. After the cybrid abomination was destroyed, this child was born to Braun Lamia on the world of Hyperion."
She was not fully human, whispers Cardinal Lord Dusamy, although the body of her father, the Keats cybrid, was destroyed. His AI persona was stored in a Schroen loop shunt.
Admiral Marusin also leans closer, as if this information is just for the 3 of them.
"We believe that this child communicated with the Keats persona trapped in that Schroen loop even before she was born," he says softly. "We are almost certain that this fetus was in touch with the Technocore via that cybrid persona."
DeSoya feels and ignores an impulse to cross himself. His reading, instruction, and faith have taught him that the Technocore had been evil incarnate, simply the most active manifestation of the evil one in modern human history. The destruction of the Technocore had been the salvation of not only the beleaguered church, but of humanity itself. DeSoya tries to imagine what an unborn human soul would learn from direct contact with those disembodied, soulless intelligences.
"The child is dangerous," whispers Cardinal Lord Dusamy, "even though the Technocore was banished by the fall of the Farcasters, even though the Church no longer allows soulless machines to have true intelligence, this child has been programmed as an agent of those fallen AIs, an agent of the Evil One."
DeSoya rubs his cheek. He is suddenly very tired. "You speak as though she is still alive," he says softly, "and still a child." Cardinal Lord Dusamy's silken robes rustle as he shifts position. His voice is an ominous baritone.
"She lives," he says. "She is still a child."
DeSoya looks back at the young girl's hollow as it floats between them. He touches the cube and the image fades. "Cryogenic storage?" he says.
"On Hyperion there are time tombs," rumbles Lord Dusamy. "One of them, a thing called the Sphinx, which you may remember from the poem or church history, has been used as a portal across time. No one knows how it works. For most people, it does not work at all."
The Cardinal glances at the Admiral and then back to the priest-captain before him.
"The child disappeared in the Sphinx some 263 standard years ago. We knew at the time that she was dangerous to the Pax, but we arrived days late. We have reliable information that she will emerge from that tomb in less than a standard month. Still a child. Still lethally dangerous to the Pax."
Dangerous to the Pax, repeats DeSoya. He does not understand.
His Holiness has foreseen this danger,
Rumbles Cardinal Lord Ducemy.
Almost 3 centuries ago, our Lord saw fit to reveal to His Holiness the threat this poor child represents, and the Holy Father has now moved to deal with this danger.
I don't understand, confesses Father Captain DeSoya. The holo is off, but he can still see the innocent face of the child in his mind. How can this little girl be a danger, then or now? Cardinal Lord Ducemy squeezes DeSoya's forearm.
As an agent of the Technocore, she will be a virus introduced into the body of Christ. It has been revealed to His Holiness that the girl will have powers that are not human. One of these powers is the power to persuade the faithful to leave the light of God's teachings, to abandon salvation for service to the evil one.
DeSoya nods, although he does not understand. His forearm aches with the pressure of Lord Ducemy's powerful hand. What do you wish of me, Your Excellency? Admiral Marusin answers in a loud voice that shocks DeSoya after all of the soft tones and whispering.
As of this moment, snaps Marusin, you are detached from your fleet assignment, Father Captain DeSoya. As of this moment, you are assigned to find and return this child, this girl, to the Vatican.
The Cardinal seems to catch a glint of anxiety in DeSoya's eyes.
My son, he says, his deep voice soothing now, are you afraid the child might be harmed?
Yes, Your Excellency. DeSoya wonders if this admission will disqualify him from service. Lord Ducemy's touch lightens, becomes a friendlier grip.
Be assured, my son, that no one in the Holy See, no one in the Pax, has any intention of harming this little girl. Indeed, the Holy Father has instructed you, to make it your second highest priority that no harm shall come to her.
Your first priority, says the Admiral, is to return her here, to Pacem, to Pax Command here in the Vatican.
DeSoya nods and swallows. The question foremost in his mind is, why me? Aloud, he says, Yes, sir, I understand.
You will receive a papal authority diski, continues the Admiral. You may requisition any materials, help, liaison, or personnel it is in the power of local Pax authorities to provide. Do you have any questions about that?
No, sir. DeSoya's voice is firm, but his mind is reeling. A papal authority diski would give him more power than that bestowed on Pax planetary governors.
You will translate to Hyperion system this very day, continues Admiral Marusin in the same brisk, no-nonsense voice of command. Captain Wu.
The Pax military aide steps forward and hands DeSoya a red action portfolio disc. The Father Captain nods, but his mind is screaming. To Hyperion system this day. The Archangel courier ship. To die again. The pain. No, sweet Jesus, dear Lord, let this cup pass from me.
You will have command of our newest and most advanced courier ship, Captain, Marusin is saying. It is similar to the one which brought you to Pacem system, except that it can hold 6 passengers. It is armed to the level of your former torch ship, and it has an automated resurrection system.
Yes, sir, says DeSoya. An automated resurrection system, he thinks. Is the sacrament to be administered by a machine? Cardinal Lord Ducemy pats his arm again.
The robot system is regrettable, my son, but the ship may carry you to places where the Pax and the Church do not exist. We cannot deny you resurrection simply because you are beyond the reach of God's servants. Be assured, my son, that the Holy Father himself has blessed this resurrection equipment and ordained it with the same sacramental imperative a true resurrection mass would offer.
Thank you, Your Excellency.
DeSoya mumbles. "But I do not understand. Places beyond the church. Did you not say that I was to travel to Hyperion? I have never been there, but I thought that this world was a member of—"
It belongs to the Pax, interrupts the Admiral, but if you are unsuccessful in capturing— he pauses— in rescuing the child, if for some unforeseen reason you must follow her to other worlds, other systems, we thought it best the ship have an automated resurrection crash for you.
DeSoya bows his head in obedience and confusion.
But we expect you to find the child on Hyperion, continues Admiral Marusin. When you arrive on that world, you will introduce yourself and show your papal diski to Ground Force Commander Barnes Avon. The commander is in charge of the Swiss Guard Brigade that has been pre-positioned on Hyperion, and upon your arrival you will be in effective command of those troops.
DeSoya blinks. Command of a Swiss Guard Brigade? I am a fleet torch ship captain. I wouldn't know a ground force maneuver from a cavalry charge.
Admiral Marusin chuckles. We understand that this is a bit out of your regular line of duty, Father Captain DeSoya, but be assured that your command status is necessary. Commander Barnes-Avon will continue day-to-day command of ground forces, but it is imperative that all resources be bent to the rescue of this child.
DeSoya clears his throat. What will happen to— You say that we do not know her name? The child, I mean.
Before she disappeared, rumbles Cardinal Lord Dusamy, she called herself Aenea, and as for what will happen to her, again, I reassure you, my son, our intentions are to prevent her from infecting the body of Christ in the Pax from her virus, but we will do so without harming her. Indeed, our mission— your mission is to save the child's immortal soul. The Holy Father himself will see to that.
Something in the Cardinal's voice makes DeSoya realize that the conference is over. The Father Captain stands, sensing the resurrection displacement shifting inside him like a vertigo. I must die again within the day. Still joyous, he nonetheless feels like weeping. Admiral Marusin is also standing.
Father Captain DeSoya, your reassignment to this mission is effective until the child is delivered unto me, here at the Vatican Military Liaison Office.
Within weeks, we are sure,
rumbles Cardinal Lord Dusamy, still seated.
This is a great and terrible responsibility, says the Admiral. You must use every ounce of your faith and your abilities to carry out His Holiness's expressed wish to bring this child safely to the Vatican, before the destructive virus of her programmed treachery is spread among our own brothers and sisters in Christ. We know that you will not let us down, Father Captain DeSoya.
Thank you, sir, says DeSoya, and thinks again. Why me? He kneels to kiss the Cardinal's ring and rises to find that the Admiral has stepped back in the darkness of the bower, where the other shadowy figures have not stirred. Monsignor Lucas Oddi and Pax Captain Margaret Wu move to either side of DeSoya and act as escorts as they turn to leave the garden. It is then, his mind still lurching in confusion and shock, his heart pounding with eagerness and terror at the important service set before him, that Father Captain DeSoya glances back just as a rising dropship's plasma tail lights the dome of St. Peter's, the rooftops of the Vatican, and the garden, with its pulse of blue flame. For an instant, the figures within the arched shadow of the bower are clearly visible, illuminated by the strobe of blue plasma light. Admiral Marusin is there, already turned away from DeSoya, as are two standing Swiss Guard officers in combat armor, their flechette weapons raised at port arms. But it is the seated figure illuminated for that instant who will haunt DeSoya's dreams and thoughts for years to come.
Seated there on the garden bench, his sad eyes locked firmly on DeSoya's retreating form, his high brow and mournful countenance painted briefly but indelibly in blue plasma glow, is His Holiness Pope Julius XIV, the Holy Father to more than 600 billion faithful Catholics, the de facto ruler of 400 billion more scattered souls in the far-flung Pax, and the man who has just launched Federico DeSoya on his fateful voyage. Ten. It was the morning after our banquet, and we were in the spaceship again. That is, the android Bettik and I were in the ship, having walked there the convenient way through the tunnel connecting the two towers. Martin Silenus was present as a hologram. It was a strange holographic image, since the old poet chose to have the transmitter or the ship's computer represent him as a younger version of himself. An ancient satyr, still, but one who stood on his own legs and had hair on his sharp-eared head. I looked at the poet with his maroon cape, full-sleeved blouse, balloon trousers, and floppy beret, and realized what a dandy he must have been when those clothes had been in fashion. I was looking at Martin Silenus as he must have appeared when he had returned to Hyperion as a pilgrim 3 centuries earlier.
"Do you just want to stare at me like some fucking yokel?" said the holographic image. "Or do you want to finish the fucking tour so we can get on with business?"
The old man was either hung over from the previous night's wine, or had regained enough health to be in an even more vicious mood than usual. "Lead on," I said. From our tunnel we had taken the ship's lift up to the lowest airlock. Bettik and the poet's holo led me through the ascending levels, the engine room with its indecipherable instruments and webs of pipes and cables, then the cold sleep level, 4 cryogenic fugue couches in their supercooled cubbies. One couch missing, I discovered, since Martin Silenus had removed it for his own purposes. Then the central airlock corridor I had entered by the day before, the wood walls concealing a multitude of storage lockers holding such things as spacesuits, all-terrain vehicles, sky bikes, and even some archaic weapons. Then the living area with its Steinway and holopit. Then up the spiral staircase again to what Bettik called the navigation room. There was indeed a cubby with some electronic navigation instruments visible, but which I saw as the library with shelf after shelf of books. Real books, print books, and several couches and daybeds next to windows in the ship's hull, and finally up the stairs to the apex of the ship, which was simply a round bedroom with a single bed in the center of it.
"The consul used to enjoy watching the weather from here while listening to music," said Martin Silenus. "Ship?"
The arching bulkhead around the circular room went transparent. The arching bulkhead around the circular room went transparent, as did the bow of the ship above us. There were only the dark stones of the tower interior around us, but from above there fell a filtered light through the rotting roof of the silo. Soft music suddenly filled the room. It was a piano, unaccompanied, and the melody was ancient and haunting. "Churchovik?" I guessed. The old poet snorted.
"Rachmaninoff."
The satyrish features seemed suddenly mellow in the dim light.
"Can you guess who's playing?"
I listened. The pianist was very good. I had no idea who it was. "The consul," said Bettik. The android's voice was very soft. Martin Silenus grunted.
"Ship? Opaque."
The walls solidified. The old poet's holo disappeared from its place by the bulkhead and flashed into existence near the spiral stairs. He kept doing that, and the effect was disconcerting.
"Well, if we're finished with the fucking tour, let's go down to the living room and figure out how to outsmart the Pax."
Oh, hey, Echo, thanks for tuning in. Happy New Year. The maps were the old kind, ink on paper, and they were spread out across the top of the gleaming grand piano. The contents of Aquila spread its wings above the keyboard, and the horse head of Equus curled as a separate map above. Martin Silenus's hollow strode on powerful legs to the piano and stabbed a finger down about where the horse's eye should be.
"Here," he said, "and here."
The massless finger made no noise against the paper.
"The Pope's got his fucking troops all the way from Kronos Keep here."
The weightless finger jabbed at a point where the bridle range of the mountains came to their easternmost point behind the eye.
"All the way down the snout. They have aircraft here at Sad King Billy's cursed city."
The finger pounded silently at a point only a few kilometers northwest of the Valley of the Time Tombs,
"and have massed the Swiss Guard in the valley itself."
I looked at the map. Except for the abandoned Poet's City and the valley, the eastern fourth of Equus had been empty desert and out of bounds for anyone except Pac's troops for more than 2 centuries. "How do you know the Swiss Guard troops are there?" I asked. The satyr's brows arched.
"I have my sources," he said.
"Do your sources tell you the units and armament?" The hollow made a noise that sounded as if the old man were going to spit on the carpet.
"You don't need to know the units," he snapped. "Suffice it to say that there are 30,000 soldiers between you and the Sphinx where Aenea will step out tomorrow. 3,000 of those troops are Swiss Guard. Now, how are you going to get through them?"
I felt like laughing aloud. I doubted if the entire home guard of Hyperion, with air and space support, could get through Okay, let's try that again so I can get the appropriate emphasis on the right syllable. I felt like laughing aloud. I doubted if the entire home guard of Hyperion, with air and space support, could get through 6 Swiss Guard. Their weapons, training, and defensive systems were that good. Instead of laughing, I studied the map again. "You say that aircraft are staging out of the Poet's City. Do you know the types of planes?" The poet shrugged.
"Fighters. EMVs don't work worth shit down here, of course. So they brought in thrust reaction planes. Jets, I think."
"Scram, ram, pulse, or air breathing," I said. I was trying to sound as if I knew what I was talking about, but my military knowledge gleaned in the home guard had been centered on field stripping my weapon, cleaning my weapon, firing my weapon, marching through nasty weather without getting my weapon wet, trying to get a few hours sleep when I wasn't marching, cleaning, or field stripping, trying not to freeze to death when I was asleep, and, upon occasion, keeping my head down so that I wouldn't get killed by Ursus snipers.
"What the fuck does it matter what kind of planes?"
growled Martin Silenus. Losing 3 centuries in appearance certainly had not mellowed him.
"They're fighters. We've clocked them at... Ship? What the fuck was the speed we clocked those last blips at?"
"Mach 3, said the ship.
"Mach 3, repeated the poet. "Fast enough to fly down here, firebomb this place to ashes, and be back to the North Continent before their beers get warm."
I looked up from the map. "I've been meaning to ask," I said. "Why don't they?" The poet's head turned my way.
"Why don't they what?"
"Fly down here, firebomb you to ashes, and be home before their beer is warm," I said. "You're a threat to them. Why do they tolerate you?" Martin Silenus grunted.
"I'm dead. They think I'm dead. How could a dead man be a threat to anyone?"
I sighed and looked back at the map. There has to be a troopship in orbit, but I don't suppose you know what kind of craft escorted it here? Surprisingly, it was the ship who replied. "The troopship is a 300,000-ton Akira-class spin ship," came the soft voice. "It was escorted by 2 standard Pax-class torch ships, the St. Anthony and the St. Bonaventure. There is also a C-3 ship in high orbit."
"What the fuck is a C-3 ship?"
grumbled the poet's hollow. I glanced at him. How could anyone live for 1,000 years and not learn such a basic thing? Poets were strange. "Command Communications Control," I said.
"So the Pax SOB who's in charge is up there?"
asked Silenus. I rubbed my cheek and stared at the map.
Not necessarily, I said. The commander of the Space Task Force will be there, but the head of operations may be on the ground. The PAX trains its commanders for combined operations. With so many of the Swiss Guard here, someone important is in command on the ground.
All right, said the poet. How are you going to get through them and get my little friend out?
Excuse me, said the ship, but there is an additional spacecraft in orbit. It arrived about 3 weeks ago, standard, and sent a dropship to the Valley of the Time Tombs.
What kind of ship? I asked. There was the briefest hesitation.
I do not know, said the ship. The configuration is strange to me. Small, perhaps courier-sized, but the propulsion profile is strange.
It probably is a courier, I said to Silenus. Poor bugger's been stuck in cryogenic fugue for months, paying years of time debt, just to deliver some message PAX Central forgot to give the commander before he or she left. The poet's holographic hand brushed at the map again.
Stick to the subject. How do you get Aenea away from these mother humpers?
I stepped away from the piano. My voice held anger when I spoke. How the hell should I know? You're the one who's had 2.5 centuries to plan this stupid escape. I waved my hand, indicating the ship. I presume this thing is our ticket to outrunning the torch ships. I paused. Ship? Can you outrun a PAX torch ship to C+ translation? All Hawking drives provided the same pseudo-velocity above light speed, of course, so our escape and survival, or capture and destruction, depended upon the race to that quantum point. Oh, yes, said the ship immediately. Parts of my memory are missing, but I am aware that the consul had me modified during a visit to an ouster colony. An ouster colony? I repeated stupidly. My skin prickled despite logic. I had grown up fearing another ouster invasion. Ousters were the ultimate boogeymen. Yes, said the ship with something like pride audible in its voice. We will be able to spin up to C+ velocities almost 23% faster than a PAX torch ship of the line. They can lance you at half an AU, I said, not convinced. Yes, agreed the ship. Nothing to worry about, if we have 15 minutes head start. I turned back to the frowning hollow and silent android. That's all great, I said, if it's true, but it doesn't help me figure out how to get the girl to the ship or the ship away from Hyperion with that 15-minute head start. The torch ships will be in what's called a COP, a combat orbiting patrol. One or more of them will be over Equus every second, covering every square meter of space from 100 light-minutes out to the upper atmosphere. At about 30 kilometers, the combat air patrol, probably Scorpion-class pulse fighters, able to scram into low orbit if need be, will take over. Neither the space nor atmospheric patrol would allow the ship 15 seconds on their screens, much less 15 minutes. I look at the old man's younger face. Unless there's something you're not telling me. Ship, didn't the ousters fit you with some sort of magical stealth technology? Oh, sorry. Ship, did the ousters fit you with some sort of magical stealth technology? An invisibility shield or something? Not that I'm aware of, said the ship. After a second, it added, That wouldn't be possible, would it? I ignored the ship. Look, I said to Martin Silenus, I'd like to help you get the girl.
Aenea,
said the old man. I'd like to get Aenea away from these guys, but if she's as important to you as she is to the PAX, 3,000 Swiss Guard, good Christ. There's no way we can get within 500 kilometers of the Valley of the Time Tombs, even with this nifty keen spaceship. I saw the doubt in Silenus's eyes, even through holographic distortion, so I continued. I'm serious, I said. Even if there were no space or air cover, no torch ships or fighters or airborne radar, there's the Swiss Guard. I found that I was clenching my hands into fists as I spoke. These guys are deadly. They're trained to work in squads of 5, and any one of those squads could bring down a spaceship like this. The satyr's brows arched in surprise or doubt. Listen, I said again. Ship? Yes, Endymion. Do you have defensive shields? No, Endymion. I do have ouster-enhanced containment fields, but they are only for civilian use. I didn't know what ouster-enhanced containment fields were, but I went on.
Could they stop a standard torch ship's CPB or lance? No, said the ship. Could you defeat C+ or conventional kinetic torpedoes? No. Could you outrun them? No. Could you prevent a boarding party from entering? No. Do you have any offensive or defensive abilities that could deal with Pax warships? Unless one counts being able to run like hell, Endymion, the answer is no, said the ship. I looked back at Martin Silenus. We're screwed, I said softly. Even if I could get to the girl, they'd just capture me as well as her. Martin Silenus smiled. Perhaps not, he said. He nodded to A. Bettik, and the android went up the spiral stairway to the upper level and returned in less than a minute. He was carrying a rolled cylinder of something. If this is the secret weapon, I said, it had better be good. It is, said the poet's smirking hologram. He nodded again, and A. Bettik unrolled the cylinder. It was a rug, a bit less than 2 meters long and a bit more than a meter wide. The cloth was frayed and faded, but I could see intricate designs and patterns. A complex weave of gold threads was still as bright as... My God, I said, the realization hitting me like a fist to the solar plexus. A hawking mat. The holo of Martin Silenus cleared his throat as if preparing to spit. Not a hawking mat, he grumbled. The hawking mat. I took a step back. This was the stuff of pure legend, and I was almost standing on it. There had been only a few hundred hawking mats in existence, ever, and this was the first one, created by the old Earth lepidopterist and legendary EM systems inventor Vladimir Shokolov, shortly after the destruction of old Earth. Shokolov, already in his 70s, standard, had fallen madly in love with his teenage niece, Alotila, and had created this flying carpet to win her love in return. After a passionate interlude, the teenager had spurned the old man. Shokolov had killed himself on New Earth only weeks after perfecting the current Hawking spin drive, and the carpet had been lost for centuries. Until Mike Osho bought it in Carvnal Until Mike Osho bought it in Carvnal Marketplace and took it to Maui Covenant, using it with his fellow shipman Marin Aspic in what would become another love affair that would enter legend, the love of Marin and Siri. This second legend, of course, had become part of Martin Silenus's epic cantos, and if his tale was to be believed, Siri had been the consul's grandmother. In the cantos, the hegemony consul had used this very same hawking mat, hawking here with a small h because it referred to the old Earth bird, not the pre-Hedgera scientist whose work had led to Sholokov's C+ breakthrough with the improved hawking drive. To cross Hyperion in one final legend, this being the consul's epic flight toward the city of Keats from the Valley of the Time Tombs, to free this very ship and fly it back to the tombs. I went to one knee and reverently touched the artifact. Jesus H. Christ, said Silenus, it's only a fucking rug, and an ugly one at that. I wouldn't have it in my house. It clashes with everything. I looked up. Yes, said A. Bettik, this is the same hawking mat. Does it still fly? I asked. A. Bettik dropped to one knee next to me and extended his blue-fingered hand, tapping at the curled and complicated design. The hawking mat grew as rigid as a board and hovered 10 centimeters above the floor. I shook my head. I never understood. EM systems don't work on Hyperion because of the weird magnetic fields here. Big EM systems don't, snapped Martin Silenus. EMVs, levitation barges, big stuff. The carpet does, and it's been improved. I raised an eyebrow. Improved? The ousters again, came the ship's voice. I don't remember it well, but they tinkered with a lot of things when we visited them 2.5 centuries ago. Evidently, I said. I stood and nudged the legendary mat with my foot. It bounced as if on firm springs, but remained hovering where it was. Okay, I said, we have Marin and Ceres' hawking mat, which, if I remember the story, could fly along at about 20 clicks per hour. 26 kilometers per hour was its top speed, said Bettik. I nodded and nudged the hovering carpet again. 26 clicks per hour with a good tailwind, I said, and the Valley of the Time Tombs is how far from here? 1,689 kilometers, said the ship. And how much time do we have before Aenea steps out of the Sphinx there? I said.
20 hours,
said Martin Silenus. He must have tired of his younger image, because the hollow projection was now of the old man I had seen him as I had seen him the night before, hoverchair and all. I glanced at my wrist chronometer. I'm late, I said. I should have started flying this a couple of days ago. I walked back to the grand piano. And what if I had? This is our secret weapon? Does it have some sort of super defense field to protect me and the girl from the Swiss Guard lances and bullets? No, said Bettik. It has no defensive capabilities whatsoever, except for a containment field to deflect the wind and to keep its occupants in place. I shrugged. So what do I do? Carry the rug to the valley and offer the Pax a trade? One old hawking mat for the kid? Bettik remained kneeling by the hovering carpet. His blue fingers continued to caress the faded fabric. The ousters modified it to hold a charge longer, up to 1,000 hours. I nodded. Impressive superconductor technology, but totally irrelevant. And it now flies at speeds in excess of 300 kilometers per hour, continued the android. I chewed my lip. So I could get there by tomorrow, if I wanted to sit on a flying rug for 5.5 hours. And then what? I thought we had to pluck her away in this ship, I said. Get her out of the Hyperion system and all that.
Yes,
said Martin Silenus, his voice suddenly as tired as his aged image.
But first you have to get her to the ship.
I walked away from the piano, stopping at the spiral staircase to whirl back toward the android, the holo, and the hovering carpet. You two just don't understand, do you? I said, my voice louder and sharper than I had intended. These are Swiss Guard. If you think that damned rug can get me in under their radar, motion detectors, and other sensors, you're crazy. I'd just be a sitting duck flapping along at 300 clicks per hour. Believe me, the Swiss Guard grunts, much less the pulse jets in combat air patrol, much less the orbiting torch ships, would lance this thing in a nanosecond. I paused and squinted at them. Unless there's something else you're not telling me.
Of course there is,
said Martin Silenus, and managed a satyr's tired smile.
Of course there is.
Let's take the hawking mat out to the tower window, said Bettik. You have to learn how to handle it. Now? I said, my voice suddenly small. I felt my heart begin to hammer.
Now, said Martin Silenus. You have to be proficient at flying it by the time you leave at 0300 hours tomorrow.
I do? I said, staring at the hovering legendary rug with a growing sense of this is real. I may die tomorrow.
You do,
said Martin Silenus. Bettik deactivated the hawking mat and rolled it into a cylinder. I followed him down the metal stairs and out the corridor to the tower staircase. The sunlight was bright through the open tower window. My God, I thought as the android spread the carpet on a stone ledge and activated it again. It was still a long drop to the stones below. My God, I thought again, my pulse pounding in my ears. There was no sign of the old poet's holo. Bettik gestured me onto the hovering hawking mat. I'll go with you on the first flight, the android said softly. A breeze rustled the leaves atop the nearby chalma tree. My God, I thought a final time, and climbed onto the sill and then onto the hawking mat.
11. Precisely 2 hours before the child is scheduled to emerge from the Sphinx, an alarm sounds in Father Captain DeSoya's command skimmer.
Airborne contact bearing 172, northbound, speed 274 clicks, altitude 4 meters, comes the voice of the COP Defense Perimeter Controller from the C-3 ship 600 kilometers above. Oh, that was the wrong character voice. Distance to intruder 570 clicks.
4 meters? Says DeSoya, looking at Commander Barnes-Oven, where she sits across from him at the CIC console amidships in the skimmer.
Trying to come in low and slow under detection,
says the commander. She is a small woman with pale skin and red hair. But very little of either skin or hair is visible under the combat headgear she wears. In the 3 weeks DeSoya has known the commander, he has not seen her smile.
Tactical visor, she says.
Her own visor is in place. DeSoya lowers his. The blip is near the southern tip of Equus, moving north from the coast.
Why didn't we see it before? He says.
Could have just launched, says Barnes-Oven. She is checking combat assets within her tactical display. After the first difficult hour in which DeSoya had to present the papal diski to convince her that command of the Pax's most elite brigades was to be handed over to a mere ship's captain, Barnes-Oven has shown total cooperation. Of course, DeSoya has left the minute-to-minute operation to her. Many of the Swiss Guard Brigade leaders believe DeSoya to be a mere papal liaison. DeSoya does not care. The child is his concern, the girl, and as long as the ground force is being well commanded, the details are of little concern.
No visual, says the commander. Dust storm down there. It'll be before S-hour.
S-hour is what the troops have been calling the opening of the Sphinx for months now. Only a few officers among them know that a child has been the focus of all this firepower. Swiss guards do not grumble, but few could appreciate such a provincial posting, so far from the action, in such sandy and uncomfortable surroundings.
Contact remains northbound, 172, velocity now 259 clicks, altitude 3 meters, says the C-3 controller. Distance 570 kilometers.
Time to bring it down,
says Commander Barnes-Oven on the command channel limited to her and DeSoya.
Recommendations?
DeSoya glances up. The skimmer is banking to the south. Outside the mantis eye blisters, the horizon tilts, and the bizarre time tombs of Hyperion pass 1,000 meters beneath them. The sky to the south is a dull brown and yellow band.
Lands it from orbit? He says.
Barnes-Oven nods, but says,
You're familiar with the torch ship's work. Let's put a squad on it.
With her god glove, she touches red pips at the southern tip of the defensive perimeter.
Sergeant Gregorius!
She has switched to the tactical channel tight beam.
Commander.
The sergeant's voice is deep and graveled. You're monitoring the bogey?
Affirmative, Commander.
Intercept it, identify it, and destroy it, Sergeant.
Affirmative, Commander.
DeSoya watches as the C-3 cameras zoom toward the southern desert. 5 human forms suddenly appear rising from the dunes, their chameleon polymer fading as they rise above the dust cloud. On a normal world, they would be flying by EM repulsors. On Hyperion, they wear the bulkier reaction packs. The 5 fan out so that several hundred meters separate them and hurtle southward into the dust cloud. Oh, that's right. I think I have other cover art I wanted to swap to. Give me a sec.
I have to find which one it is first. Is it that one? No. Is it that one? Maybe. Oh, no, I can't do that one. That one's spoilery. Sort of. Sort of spoilery. Oh, no. Yeah, I have to wait on that one. Never mind. We'll stick with this one for now. It's appropriate enough. Give me a sec, I just lost my page because I have a huge brain and I pay attention to my movements. There we are. Ahem.
The five fan out so that several hundred meters separate them and hurtle southward into the dust cloud. "Aye are," says Barnes-Oven, and the visual shifts to the infrared to follow them through the thickening cloud. "Illuminate target," she says. The image shifts south, but the target is only a heat blur. "Small," says the commander. "Plain," says Captain DeSoya. Oh, sorry. "Plain?" Father Captain DeSoya is used to spaceborne tactical displays. "Too small unless it's some sort of motorized paraglider," says Barnes-Oven. There's absolutely no stress in her voice. DeSoya looks down as the skimmer passes over the south end of the Valley of the Time Tombs and accelerates. The dust storm is a gold-brown band along the horizon ahead of them.
Distance to intercept is 180 clicks,
comes Sergeant Gregorius's laconic voice. DeSoya's visor is slave to the commander's, and they are seeing what the Swiss Guard sergeant sees. Nothing. The squad of troops is flying on instruments through blowing sand so thick that the air is as dark as night around them.
Reaction packs are eating up,
comes another calm voice. DeSoya checks the readout. It is Corporal Key.
Sand's fouling up the intakes,
continues the corporal. DeSoya looks through his visor at Commander Barnes-Oven. He knows she has a tough choice to make. Another minute in that dust cloud could send one or more of her troops falling to their deaths. Failure to identify the bogey could lead to trouble later. "Sergeant Gregorius," she says, her voice still rock calm, "take out the intruder now." There is the briefest of pauses on the comm line.
"Commander, we can hang in here a few more,"
begins the sergeant. DeSoya can hear the howl of the dust storm over the man's voice. "Take it out now, Sergeant," says Barnes-Oven.
"Affirmative."
DeSoya switches to the wide-range tactical and looks up to see the commander watching him. "You think this might be a feint," she says. "A distraction to pull us away so the real intruder can infiltrate elsewhere. "Could be," says DeSoya. He sees from the display that the commander has raised the alert all along the perimeter to level 5. A level 6 alert is combat. "Let's see," she says, just as Gregorius's troops fire. The dust storm is a rolling cauldron of sand and electricity. At 175 kilometers, their energy weapons are reliable. Gregorius chooses a steel rain dart and launches it himself. The dart accelerates to Mach 6. The bogey does not divert from its path. "No sensors, I think," says Barnes-Oven. "It's flying blind. Programmed." The dart passes over the heat target and detonates at a distance of 30 meters, the shaped charge propelling the 20,000 flechettes directly downward into the intruder's path.
"Contact down,"
says the C3 controller at the same second that Sergeant Gregorius reports.
"Got him."
"Find and identify," says the commander. Their skimmer has banked back toward the valley. DeSoya glances through the visor display. She has taken the kill at a distance, but is not removing the troops from the storm.
"Affirmative,"
says the sergeant, and the storm is wild enough to add static to a tight beam. The skimmer flies low over the valley, and DeSoya identifies the tombs for the 1,000th time. Here, in reverse order from the usual pilgrim's approach, although there have been no pilgrims for more than 3 centuries, comes first the Shrike Palace, farther south than the others, its barbed and serrated buttresses reminiscent of the creature that has not been seen here since the days of the pilgrims. Then the more subtle cave tombs, 3 in all, their entrances carved out of the pink stone of the canyon wall, then the huge centrally placed crystal monolith, then the obelisk, then the jade tomb, and finally the intricately carved sphinx with sealed door and outflung wings. DeSoya glances at his chronometer. 1 hour and 56 minutes, says Commander Barnes-Oven. Father Captain DeSoya chews his lip. The cordon of Swiss Guard troops is in place around the Sphinx.
has been in place for months. Farther out, more troops are placed in a broader perimeter. Each tomb has its detail of waiting soldiers, just in case the prophecy might have been mistaken. Beyond the valley, more troops. Above them, the torch ships and command ship keep watch. At the entrance to the valley, DeSoya's private dropship awaits, its engines already powered up, ready for immediate liftoff as soon as the sedated child is aboard. 2,000 clicks above, the Archangel-class courier ship Raphael waits with its child-sized acceleration couch. First, though, DeSoya knows, the girl whose name might be Aenea must receive the sacrament of the cruciform. This will happen at the chapel in the torch ship St. Bonaventure in orbit, moments before the sleeping child is transferred to the courier ship. 3 days after that, she will be resurrected on Pacem and delivered to the Pax authorities. Father Captain DeSoya licks his dry lips. He is worried that an innocent child will be hurt, as he is as worried that an innocent child will be hurt as he is that something will go wrong in the detention. He cannot imagine how a child, even a child from the past, one who has communicated with the Technocorps, can be a threat to the far-flung Pax or the Holy Church. Father Captain DeSoya throttles back his thoughts. It is not his place to imagine. It is his place to carry out orders and serve his superiors, and through them to serve the Church and Jesus Christ.
"Here's your bogey,"
comes Sergeant Gregorius's rasp. The visual is hazy, the dust storm is still very wild, but all 5 troops have made it to the crash site. DeSoya raises the resolution on his visor display and sees the shattered wood and paper, the riddled, twisted metal that might have been a simple solar battery pulse reaction outboard. "Drown," says Corporal Key. DeSoya flips up his visor and smiles at Commander Barnes-Oven. "Another drill from you," he says. "That's 5 today." The commander does not return the smile. "Next time it may be the real thing," she says. To her tactical mic, she says, "Level 5 continues. At S-60, we go to Level 6. Confirmations ring on all bands. "I still don't understand who might want to interfere," says Father Captain DeSoya, "or how they could do it." Commander Barnes-Oven shrugs. "The ousters could be spinning down from C+ even as we speak." Then they'd better bring a full swarm," says the Father Captain. "Anything less, and we'll handle them easily." "Nothing in life is easy," says Commander Barnes-Oven. The skimmer touches down. The lock cycles and the ramp lowers. The pilot turns in his seat, slides his visor up, and says, "Commander, Captain, you wanted to land at the Sphinx at S-1 hour and 50 minutes. We're a minute early." DeSoya disconnects himself from the skimmer console. "I'm going to stretch my legs before the storm arrives," he says to the commander. "Care to join me?" "No." Barnes-Oven lowers her visor and begins whispering commands. Outside the skimmer, the air is thin and charged with electricity. Overhead, the sky is still the peculiar deep lapis of Hyperion, but already the southern rim of the canyon has a haze hanging over it as the storm approaches. DeSoya glances at his chronometer. 1 hour and 50 minutes. He takes a deep breath, vows not to look again at the timepiece for at least 10 minutes, and walks into the looming shadow of the Sphinx. After hours of talk, I was sent to bed to sleep until 3 a.m. Of course, I did not. I have always had trouble sleeping the night before a trip, and this night I did not sleep at all. The city after which I was named was quiet after midnight. The autumn breeze had dropped, and the stars were very bright. For an hour or two I stayed in my sleep shirt, but by 1 a.m. I rose, dressed in the sturdy clothes they had given me the night before, and went through the contents of my pack for the 5th or 6th time. There was not much for so daunting an adventure. A change of clothes and underwear, socks, a flashlight laser, 2 water bottles, a knife, I had specified the type, in a belt scabbard, a heavy canvas jacket with thermal lining, an ultralight blanket to use as a bedroll, an inertial guidance compass, an old sweater, night vision glasses, and a pair of leather gloves. "What else would you need to explore the universe?" I muttered. "A towel, maybe." Well, I guess that's the ultralight blanket. Anyway, I had also specified the type of clothing I would wear on this day: a comfortable canvas shirt and an overvest with numerous pockets, tough whipcord trousers of the sort I'd worn while duck hunting in the fens, soft high boots, what I thought of as buccaneer boots from the description in Grandham's stories, that were only a bit too tight, and a soft tricorn cap that would fold away in a vest pocket when I did not need it. I clasped the knife to my belt, set the compass in my vest pocket, and stood at the window watching the stars wheel over the mountain tops until A. Bettik came to wake me at 2:45. The old poet was awake and in his hover chair at the end of the table on the highest level of the tower. The canvas roof had been pulled back, and the stars burned coldly overhead. Flames sputtered in the braziers along the wall, and actual torches were set higher on the stone wall. There was breakfast laid out: fried meats, fruits, meat patties with syrup, meal patties with syrup, fresh bread, but I took only a cup of coffee. There we go.
"You'd better eat," grumbled the old man. "You don't know when your next meal will come."
I stood looking at him. Steam from the coffee rose to warm my face. The air was chill. If things go according to plan, I'll be in the spaceship in less than 6 hours. I'll eat then. Martin Silenus made a rough noise.
"When do things ever go according to plan, Raul Endymion?"
I sipped coffee. "Speaking of plans, you were going to tell me about the sort of miracle that's going to distract the Swiss guard while I whisk your young friend away." The ancient poet peered at me for a silent moment.
"Just trust me on that, will you?"
I sighed. I had been afraid he would say that. "That's a lot to take on trust, old man." He nodded but remained silent. "All right," I said at last. "We'll see what happens." I turned to where A. Bettik was standing near the stairway. "Just don't forget to be there with the ship when we need you." "I will not forget, sir," said the android. I walked to where the hawking mat was laid out on the floor. A. Bettik had set my pack on it. "Any last instructions?" I asked, not knowing which person I was speaking to. The old man floated closer on his hover chair. He looked ancient in the torchlight, more wizened and mummified than ever. His fingers were like yellowed bones.
"Just this," he rasped. "Listen. In the wide sea there lives a forlorn wretch, doomed with enfeebled carcass to outstretch his loathed existence through 10 centuries, and then to die alone. Who can devise a total opposition? No one. So, 1,000,000 times ocean must ebb and flow, and he oppressed. Yet he shall not die. These things accomplished. Yet he shall not die, these things accomplished. If he shall not die, scans all depths of magic, and expounds the meanings of all motions, shapes, and sounds. If he explores all forms and substances, straight homeward to their symbol essences, he shall not die. Moreover, and in chief, he must pursue this task of joy and grief most piously, all lovers tempest-tossed, and in the savage overwhelming lost, he shall deposit side by side, until time's creeping shall the dreary space fulfill, which done, and all these labors ripened, a youth, by heavenly power loved and led, shall stand before him, whom he shall direct how to consummate
all. The youth elect must do the thing, or both will be destroyed.
What? I said. I don't...
Fuck it, rasped the poet. Just get Aenea, take her to the ousters, and get her back alive. It's not too complicated. Even a shepherd should be able to do it.
Don't forget landscape apprentice, bartender, and duck hunter, I said, and set my cup of coffee down.
It's almost 3, said Silenus. You need to get going.
I took a breath. Just 1 minute, I said. I clattered down the stairs, went into the lavatory, relieved myself, and leaned against the cool stone wall for a moment. Are you mad, Raul Endymion? It was my thought, but I heard it in Grandam's soft voice. Yes, I answered. I walked back up the stairs, amazed at how shaky my legs were and how rapidly my heart was beating. All set, I said. Mother always said to take care of these things before leaving home. The 1,000-year-old poet grunted and hovered his chair near the hawking mat. I sat on the rug, activated the flight threads, and hovered 1.5 meters above the stone floor.
Remember, once you're in the cleft and find the entrance, it's programmed, said Silenus.
I know, you told me all about...
Shut up and listen, he rasped.
Ancient parchment fingers pointed to the proper thread designs.
You remember how to fly it. Once in, tap in the sequence there, 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 and the program will take over. You can interrupt this sequence to fly manually by touching the interrupt design here.
His fingers caressed air above the ancient threads.
But don't try to fly it yourself down there. You'll never find your way out.
I nodded and licked dry lips. You didn't tell me who programmed it. Who did this flight before? The satyr showed new teeth.
I did, my boy. It took me months, but I did. Almost 2 centuries ago.
2 centuries? I almost stepped off the mat. What if there have been cave-ins, shiftings due to earthquakes? What if something's got in the way since then? Martin Silenus shrugged.
You'll be going over 200 clicks per hour, boy, he said. I guess you'll die.
He slapped me on the back.
Get going. Give my love to Aenea. Tell her that Uncle Martin is waiting to see old Earth before he dies. Tell her that the old fart is eager to hear her expound the meanings of all motions, shapes, and sounds.
I raised the hawking mat another 0.5 meter. A. Bettik stepped forward and extended a blue hand. I shook it. Good luck, M. Endymion. I nodded, found nothing else to say, and flew the hawking mat up and out of the tower in rising spirals. To fly directly from the city of Endymion in the middle of the continent of Aquila to the valley of the Time Tombs on the continent of Equus, I could have headed almost due north. I should have headed almost due north. I headed east. My test flying the day before, it was the same day to my tired mind, had shown how easy it was to handle the hawking mat, but that was at speeds of a few clicks per hour. When I was 100 meters above the tower, I set the direction, the penlight clamped in my teeth illuminating the inertial compass, lining up the mat along that invisible line, checking it against the topographic map the old poet had given me, and held the palm of my hand on the acceleration pattern. The mat continued to speed up until the gentle containment field activated to shield me from the wind blast. Too late, I glanced back to catch a last glimpse of the tower, perhaps to see the old poet watching from a window, but already the ruined university town was lost to sight in the mountain darkness. There was no speed indicator, so I had to assume the mat was flying at its top speed as it soared toward the high peaks to the east. Starlight reflected on snowfields higher than my own altitude, so to be cautious, I stowed the penlight, pulled on the night vision goggles, and continued to check my position against the topo map.
As the land rose, so did I, holding the hawking mat at 100 meters above the boulders, waterfalls, avalanche chutes, and ice falls, all glowing green in the enhanced starlight from the night vision goggles. The mat was perfectly silent in its flight. Even the wind noise was hushed by the deflective containment field, and several times I saw large animals leap to hiding, surprised by the sudden appearance of this wingless bird above them. I crossed the Continental Divide half an hour after leaving the tower, keeping the mat in the center of the 5,000-meter pass. It was cold there, and though the containment field still held some of my own body heat in the traveling bubble of still air, I had long since pulled on my thermal jacket and gloves. Beyond the mountains, descending quickly to stay close to the rugged terrain, I watched the tundra give way to fen fields, the fen fields to low lines of dwarf everblues and triaspen, and then saw these high mountain trees trail off and disappear as the glow of the Tesla flame forests began to light the east like a false dawn. I stowed the night vision glasses in my pack. The sight ahead was beautiful and somewhat frightening, the entire eastern horizon snapping and crackling with electricity, ball lightning leaping between the 100-meter-tall Tesla trees, chain lightning rippling through the air between Tesla and exploding Prometheus, phoenix shrubs and random ground fires burning in 1,000 places. Both Martin Silenus and Bettik had warned me about this, and I took the hawking mat high, accepting the risk of detection at this altitude as preferable to being caught in that electric maelstrom below. Another hour, and there was a hint of sunrise to the east, beyond the flame forest glow, but just as the sky paled and then deepened into daylight, the flame forests fell behind me, and the cleft came into sight. I had been aware that I had been climbing for the past 40 minutes as I checked my route above the Pinion Plateau on the creased topo map, but now I felt the altitude as the depth of that great crevice in this part of the Aquila became visible ahead. Not the Aquila, just Aquila. My apologies. Let's try this again. I had been aware that I had been climbing for the past 40 minutes as I checked my route above the Pinion Plateau on the creased topo map, but now I felt the altitude, as the depth of that great crevice in this part of Aquila became visible ahead. In its own way, the cleft was as frightening as the flame forests, narrow, vertical, dropping 3,000 meters in a straight fall from the flatlands above. I crossed the southern edge of the great split in the continent and dived toward the river 3 kilometers below. The cleft continued east, the river beneath me roaring along at nearly the same speed as the mat as I slowed. Within moments, the morning sky darkened above me, and the stars reappeared. It was as if I had fallen into a deep well. The river at the base of these terrifying cliffs of fall was wild. What? Oh, yes. It's a waterfall. The river at the base of these terrifying cliffs of fall was wild, clogged with bergs of its own ice, leaping over boulders the size of the spaceship I had left behind. I stayed 5 meters above the spray and slowed even further. I must be close. I checked my chronometer and then the map. It should be somewhere ahead in the next 2 clicks. There. It was larger than they had described, at least 30 meters to a side, and perfectly square. The entrance to the planetary labyrinth had been carved in the form of a temple entrance or a giant door. I slowed the hawking mat further and then banked left, pausing at the entrance. According to my chronometer, it had taken just under 90 minutes to reach the cleft. The Valley of the Time Tombs were still 1,000 clicks north of here. 4 hours of flying at high cruising speed. I looked again at my chronometer. 4 hours and 20 minutes until the time the child was scheduled to step out of the Sphinx. I edged the hawking mat forward into the cavern, trying to remember the details of the priest's tale in the old man's cantos. I could remember only that it was here, just within the labyrinth entrance, that Father de Rey and the Bikura had encountered the Shrike and the cruciforms. There was no Shrike. I was not surprised. The creature had not been sighted since the fall of the world web 277 years ago. There were no cruciforms. Again, I was not surprised.
The Pax had harvested them long ago from these cavern walls. I knew what everyone knew about the labyrinth. There had been 9 known labyrinthine worlds in the old hegemony. All of those worlds had been Earth-like, 7.9 on the ancient Solmev scale, except that they were tectonically dead, more Mars-like than Earth-like in that respect. The labyrinth tunnels honeycombed those 9 worlds, Hyperion included, and served no known purpose. They had been tunneled tens of thousands of years before humankind had left old Earth, although no clue to the tunnelers had ever been found. The labyrinths fueled numerous myths, including the Cantos, but their mystery remained. The labyrinth of Hyperion had never been mapped, except for the part I was ready to travel at 270 clicks per hour. It had been mapped by a mad poet. Or so I hoped. I slipped the night vision glasses back on as the sunlight faded behind me. I felt the skin on the back of my neck prickle as the darkness closed around. Soon the glasses would be useless, as there would be no light to enhance. Taking tape from my pack, I secured the flashlight laser to the front of the hawking mat and set the beam to its widest dispersal. To the front of the hawking mat. There we go. And set the beam to its widest dispersal. The light would be faint, but the goggles would amplify it. Already I could see branchings ahead. The cavern remained a great, hollow, rectangular prism, 30 meters on a side, with only the smallest signs of cracks of collapse. And ahead, tunnels branched to the right, then left, then downward. I took a breath and tapped in the programmed sequence. The hawking mat leaped ahead, accelerating to its preset speed, the sudden lurch making me lean far backward despite the compensating effect of the containment field. That field would not protect me if the carpet took a wrong turn and smashed into a wall at this speed. Rocks flashed past. The hawking mat banked sharply to make a right turn, leveled itself in the center of the long cavern, then dived to follow a descending branch. It was terrifying to watch. I took the night vision glasses off, secured them in my coat pocket, gripped the edge of the leaping, lurching mat, and closed my eyes. I need not have bothered. The darkness was now absolute. With 15 minutes until the opening of the Sphinx, Father Captain DeSoya paces the valley floor. The storm has long since arrived, and sand fills the air in a rasping blizzard. Hundreds of Swiss Guard are deployed here along the valley floor, but their armored CTVs, their gun emplacements, their missile batteries, their observation posts, all are invisible due to the dust storm. But DeSoya knows that they would be invisible at any rate, concealed behind camouflage fields and chameleon polymer. The Father Captain has to rely on his infrared to see anything in this howling storm. And even then, with his visor down and sealed, fine particles of sand make their way down his combat suit collar and end up in his mouth. This day tastes of grit. His sweat leaves tiny trails of red mud, like blood from some holy stigmata, on his brow and cheeks. "Attention," he says over the all-call channels. "This is Father Captain DeSoya, commanding this mission under papal imperative. Commander Barneshaven will repeat these orders in a moment, but right now I want to specify that there will be no actions taken, no shots fired, no defensive acts initiated that will in any way endanger the life of the child who will be stepping from one of these tombs in 13.5 minutes. I want this understood by every PAX officer and trooper, every torch ship captain and Space Navy sailor, every pilot and airborne flight officer. This child must be captured but unharmed. Failure to heed this warning will result in court-martial and summary execution. May we all serve our Lord and our Church this day. In the name of Jesus, Mary, and Joseph, I ask that our efforts be successful. Father Captain DeSoya, Acting Commander, Hyperion Expedition, out. He continues walking as the chorus of amens comes in over tactical channels. Suddenly, he pauses. Commander? Yes, Father Captain. Barnes-Oven's voice is calm in his earphones. Would it screw up your perimeter if I asked for Sergeant Gregorius' squad to join me here at the Sphinx? There is the briefest pause, which tells him how little the ground commander thinks of such last-minute changes in plans. The reception committee, a squad of specially chosen Swiss Guard, the doctor with the sedative ready to be administered, and a medic with the living cruciform in its stasis container, are even now waiting at the foot of the Sphinx's stairs. Gregorius and his troops will be there in 3 minutes, says the commander. DeSoya can hear the commands going out over the tactical tight beam and the confirmations coming in. Once again, he has asked these 5 men and women to fly in dangerous conditions. The squad touches down in 2 minutes 45 seconds. DeSoya can see them only on infrared. Their reaction packs are glowing white-hot. Shed the flying packs, he says. Just stay near me no matter what happens. Watch my back.
Yes, sir,
comes Sergeant Gregorius's rumble through the wind howl. The huge non-com steps closer, his visor and combat suit looming in DeSoya's IR vision. Obviously, the sergeant wants a visual confirmation on whose back he is watching. S minus 10 minutes, says Commander Barnes-Oven. Sensors indicate unusual activity in the anti-entropic fields around the tombs. I feel it, says DeSoya. Indeed, he can. The shifting of the time fields in the valley creates a sense of vertigo in him not too dissimilar from nausea. Both this and the raging sandstorm make the Father Captain feel unattached to the ground, light-headed, almost drunk. Planting his feet carefully, DeSoya walks back to the Sphinx. Gregorius and his troopers follow in a tight V. The welcoming committee is standing on the steps of the Sphinx. DeSoya approaches, flashes his infrared and radio ID, talks briefly with the doctor carrying the sedative ampoule, warns the woman not to harm the child, and then waits. DeSoya realizes that the combat squads do not look especially welcoming with their raised heavy weapons. Step back a few paces, he says to the 2 squad sergeants. Keep the squads ready, but out of sight of the storm. Out of sight in the storm.
Affirmative.
The 10 troopers take a dozen steps back and are totally invisible in the blowing sand. DeSoya knows that nothing living could break through the perimeter they have established. To the doctor and his medic aide carrying the cruciform, DeSoya says, Let's get closer to the door. The suited figures nod and the 3 slowly climb the stairs. The anti-entropic fields are intense now. DeSoya remembers once, as a young boy, he had stood up to his chest in a vicious surf, the tide and undertow trying to pull him out into an unfriendly ocean on his homeworld. This is a bit like that. S minus 7 minutes, says Barnes-Oven on the common channel. Then, on the tight beam to DeSoya, Father Captain, would you like the skimmer to land and get you? There's a better overview up here. No, thank you, says DeSoya. I'll stay with the contact team. He sees on his display that the skimmer is climbing for altitude, finally pausing at 10,000 meters above the worst of the dust storm. Like any good commander, Barnes-Oven wants to control the action while not being caught up in it. DeSoya keys the private channel to his dropship pilot. Hiroshi. Yes, sir. Be ready to lift off in 10 minutes or less. Ready, sir. The storm won't be a problem? As with all deep space combat captains, DeSoya is more distrustful of atmosphere than of almost anything else. No problem, sir. Good. S minus 5 minutes, comes Commander Barnes-Oven's steady voice. Orbital detectors show no space activity for 30 AUs. Northern Hemispherical Air Watch shows no vehicles airborne. Ground detection shows no unauthorized movement from bridle range to the coast. COP screen's clear, comes the C3 controller's voice. "CAP clear," says the lead Scorpion pilot. "It's still a beautiful day up here." "Radio and tight beam silence from this point on until level 6 goes to stand down," says Barnes-Avon. "S-4 minutes and sensors show maximum anti-entropic activity throughout the valley. Contact team, report in." "I'm at the door," says Dr. Shatra. "Ready," says the medic, a very young trooper named Calf. The trooper's voice is shaky. DeSoya realizes that he does not know if Calf is male or female. "All set here," reports DeSoya. He glances over his shoulder through the clear visor. Even the bottom of the stone stairway is invisible in the howling sand. Electrical discharges crackle and pop. DeSoya switches to IR and sees the 10 Swiss guards standing there, weapons literally hot. Excuse me. Even in the midst of storm noise, a terrible quiet suddenly descends. DeSoya can hear his own breathing within the helmet of his combat suit. The unused comm channels hiss and pop with static. More static lashes his tactical and IR visors, and DeSoya slides them up in exasperation. The sealed portal of the Sphinx is less than 3 meters in front of him, but the sand now conceals it, now reveals it, like a shifting curtain. DeSoya takes 2 steps closer, and Dr. Shatra and her medic follow. 2 minutes, says Barnes-Avon. All weapons to full hot. High-speed recorders to automatic. Medical dust-off teams, stand by. DeSoya closes his eyes to fight the vertigo of the time tides. The universe, he thinks, is truly wondrous. He is sorry that he has to sedate the child within seconds of meeting her. Those are his orders. She would sleep through the attachment of the cruciform and the fatal flight back to Pacem, and he knows that he will, in all probability, never hear the girl's voice. He is sorry. He would like to walk to her. He would like to talk to her, ask her questions about the past, about herself. 1 minute. Perimeter fire control on full auto. Commander! DeSoya has to slide the tactical visor down to identify the voice as belonging to a science lieutenant on the interior perimeter. The fields are building to max along all the tombs. Doors opening on the caves, the monolith, the Shrike Palace, the Jade Tomb. Silence on all channels, snaps Barnes-Avon. We're monitoring it here. 30 seconds. DeSoya realizes that the child is going to step into this new area only to be confronted with 3 helmeted, visored figures in combat armor, and slides all of his visors up. He may never get to talk to the girl, but she will see his human face before she sleeps. 15 seconds. For the first time, DeSoya hears tension in the commander's voice. Blowing sand claws at Father Captain DeSoya's exposed eyes. He raises a gloved hand, rubs and blinks through tears. He and Dr. Chakra take another step closer. The doors of the Sphinx are opening inward. The interior is dark. DeSoya wishes he could see in IR, but he does not flip the visor down. He is determined that this child will see his eyes. A shadow moves within darkness. The doctor begins to step toward the form, but DeSoya touches her arm. Wait. The shadow becomes a figure. The figure becomes a form. The form is a child. She is smaller than DeSoya expected. Her shoulder-length hair blows in the wind. Aenea, says DeSoya. He had not planned on speaking to her or calling her by her name. The girl looks up at him. He sees the dark eyes, but senses no fear there, just anxiety? Sadness? Aenea, don't worry, he begins, but the doctor moves forward quickly at that moment, injector raised, and the girl takes a quick step back. It is then that Father Captain DeSoya sees the second figure in the gloom. And it is then that the screaming begins.
14. I hadn't known that I was claustrophobic until this trip. The flying at high speeds through pitch-black catacombs, the encircling containment field blocking even the wind of my passage, the sense of stone and darkness all around. 20 minutes into the wild flight, I disengaged the autopilot program, landed the hawking mat on the labyrinth floor, collapsed the containment field, stepped away from the mat, and screamed. I grabbed the flashlight laser and played it on the walls. A square corridor of stone. Here, outside the containment field, the heat struck me. The tunnel must be very deep. There were no stalactites, no stalagmites, no bats, no living things. Only this square-hewn cavern stretching on to infinity. I played the light over the hawking mat. It seemed dead, totally inert. In my haste, I might have exited the program incorrectly, wiped it. If so, I was dead. We had jinxed and banked on a score of branchings so far, there was no way I would ever find my own way out. I screamed again, although it was a bit more of a deliberate, tension-breaking shout than a scream this time. I fought the sense of walls and darkness closing in. I willed away the nausea. 3.5 hours left. 3.5 hours of this claustrophobic nightmare, barreling along through blackness, hanging on to a leaping, flying carpet. And then what? I wished then that I had brought a weapon. It seemed absurd at the time. No handgun would have given me a chance against even a single Swiss Guard trooper, not even against a Home Guard irregular. But now I wished I had something. I removed the small hunting knife from its leather scabbard on my belt, saw the steel gleam in the flashlight beam, and started laughing. This was absurd. I set the knife back, dropped onto the mat, and tapped the resume code. The hawking mat stiffened, rose, and lurched into violent motion. I was going somewhere fast. Father Captain DeSoya sees the huge shape for an instant before it is gone, and the screaming begins. Dr. Chakra steps toward the retreating child, blocking DeSoya's view. There is a rush of air tangible even within the wind roar all around, and the doctor's helmeted head is rolling and bouncing past DeSoya's boots. "Mother of God," he whispers into his open microphone. Dr. Chakra's body still stands. The girl, Aenea, screams then, the sound almost lost under the howling sandstorm, and as if the force of the scream has acted upon Chakra's body, the corpse falls to the stone. The medic, Calf, shouts something unintelligible and lunges for the girl. Again the dark blur, more sensed than seen, and Calf's arm is separated from the medic's body. Aenea runs toward the stairway. DeSoya lunges at the child, but collides with some sort of huge metallic statue made of barbs and razor wire. Spikes puncture his combat armor. Impossible! But he feels the blood pouring from 6 minor wounds. "No!" screams the girl again. "Stop! I command you!" The 3-meter metal statue turns in slow motion. DeSoya has a confused impression of blazing red eyes staring down at the girl, and then the metal sculpture is gone. The father captain takes a step toward the child, still wanting to reassure her as well as capture her, but his left leg goes out from under him, and he goes to his right knee on the broad stone step. The girl comes to him, touches his shoulder, and whispers, somehow audibly above the wind howl and the worse howling of people in pain coming over his earphones, "It will be all right." Father Captain DeSoya's body is suffused with well-being. His mind is filled with joy. He weeps. The girl is gone. A huge figure looms over him, and DeSoya clenches his fists, tries to rise, knowing that it is futile, that the creature has returned to kill him.
"Easy,"
shouts Sergeant Gregorius. The big man helps DeSoya to his feet. The father captain cannot stand. His left leg is bleeding and useless, so Gregorius holds him in one giant arm while he sweeps the area with his energy lance. "Don't shoot!"
shouts DeSoya. "The girl!" "Gone," says Sergeant Gregorius. He fires. A spike of pure energy lashes into the crackling swirl of sand. "Damn!" Gregorius lifts the father captain over his armored shoulder. The screams on the net are growing wilder. My chronometer and compass tell me that I am almost there. Nothing else suggests that. I am still flying blind, still hanging on to the lurching hawking mat as it selects which branch of the endless labyrinth to hurtle down. I have had little sense of the tunnels climbing toward the surface, but then I have had little sense of anything except vertigo and claustrophobia. For the last 2 hours I have worn my night vision goggles and illuminated our flight path with the flashlight laser at its widest setting. At 300 clicks per hour, the rock walls rush by with alarming rapidity. But rather that than the darkness. I am still wearing the goggles when the first light appears and blinds me. I sweep off the glasses, stow them in a vest pocket, and blink away after images. The hawking mat is hurtling me toward a rectangle of pure light. I remember the old poet saying that the third cave tomb had been closed for more than 2.5 centuries. All of the time tombs on Hyperion had their portals sealed after the fall, but the third cave tomb actually had a wall of rock sealing it off from the labyrinth behind the closed portal. For hours now I had expected to barrel into that wall of rock at almost 300 clicks per hour. The square of light grows rapidly. I realize that the tunnel has been climbing for some time, rising to the surface here. I lie full length on the hawking mat, feeling it slow as it reaches the end of its programmed flight plan. "Good work, old man," I say aloud, hearing my voice for the first time since the shouting interlude 3.5 hours ago. I set my hand over the acceleration threads, afraid to let the mat slow to a walking pace here where I am bound to be a sitting duck. I had said that it would take a miracle to keep from being shot by the Swiss guard. The poet had promised me one. It is time. Sand swirls in the tomb opening, covering the doorway like a dry waterfall. Is this the miracle? I hope not. Troopers can see through a sandstorm easily enough. I break the mat to a stop just within the doorway, pull a bandana and sunglasses from my pack, tie the scarf over my nose and mouth, lie full length on my belly again, set my fingers over the flight designs, and punch the acceleration threads. The hawking mat flies through the doorway and into open air. I jink hard right, rising and dropping the mat in a wild, evasive pattern, knowing even as I do so that such efforts are useless against auto-targeting. It does not matter. My urge to stay alive overrides my logic. I cannot see. The storm is so wild that everything 2 meters beyond the leading edge of the mat is obscured. This is insane. The old poet and I never discussed the possibility of a sandstorm here. I can't even tell my altitude. Suddenly, a razor-sharp flying buttress passes less than a meter beneath the hurtling carpet. Immediately, I fly under another metal-barbed strut, and I realize that I have almost just collided with the Shrike Palace. I am headed precisely the wrong direction, south, when I need to be at the north end of the valley. I look at my compass, confirm my folly, and swing the hawking mat around. From the glimpse I had of the Shrike Palace, the mat is about 20 meters above ground level. Stopping the carpet, feeling it rocked and buffeted by the wind, I lower it like an elevator until it touches wind-swept stone. Then I raise it 3 meters, lock in that altitude, and move due north at little more than a walking pace. Where are the soldiers? As if to answer my unspoken question, dark forms in battle armor hurtle by. I flinch as they fire their Baroque energy lances and stubby flechette guns, but they are not firing at me. They are shooting over their shoulders. They are Swiss Guard, and they are running. I had never heard of such a thing. Suddenly I realize that beneath the wind howl,
The valley is alive with human screams. I don't see how this is possible. Troopers would keep their helmets fastened and visors down in such a storm. But the screams are there. I can hear them. A jet or skimmer suddenly roars overhead, no more than 10 meters above me, its autoguns firing to either side. I survive because I am directly beneath the thing, and I have to brake suddenly as the storm ahead of me is illuminated by a terrible blast of light and heat. The skimmer, jet, whatever, has flown directly into one of the tombs ahead of me. I guess that it is the crystal monolith or the jade tomb. More firing to my left. I fly right, then northwest again, trying to bypass the tombs. Suddenly there are screams to my right and directly ahead. Bolts of lance fire slash through the storm. This time someone is shooting at me. Shooting and missing? How can this be? Not waiting for an answer, I drop the hawking mat like an express elevator. Slamming into the ground, I roll aside, bolts of energy ionizing the air not 20 centimeters above my head. The inertial compass, still on a lanyard around my neck, punches me in the face as I roll. There are no boulders to hide behind, no rocks. The sand is flat here. I try to dig a ditch with my fingers as the blue bolts crisscross the air over my head. Flechette clouds flash overhead with that characteristic ripping sound they have. If I had been airborne now, the hawking mat and I would be in small tatters. Something huge is standing not 3 meters from me in the whipping sand. Its legs are planted wide. It looks like a giant in barbed combat armor. A giant with too many arms. A plasma bolt strikes it, outlining that spiked form for an instant. The thing does not melt, or fall, or fly apart. Impossible. Fucking impossible. Part of my mind coolly notes that I am thinking in obscenities the way I always have in combat. The huge shape is gone. There are more screams to my left, explosions straight ahead. How the hell am I supposed to find the kid in all this carnage? And if I did, how could I find my way to the third cave tomb? The idea, the plan, had been for me to swoop Aenea up in the miracle distraction the old poet had promised, make a dash for the third cave again, and then punch in the final bit of autopilot for the 30-click run for Kronos Keep on the edge of the bridle range, where Bettik and the spaceship would be waiting for me in 3 minutes. Even in all this confusion, whatever the hell it is, there is no way that the orbital torch ships or ground-based anti-aircraft AA batteries can miss something as big as the ship if it hangs around for more than the 30 seconds we'd allotted for it to be on the ground. This whole rescue mission is screwed. The earth shakes and a boom fills the valley. Either something huge is blown up, an ammo dump at least, or something much larger than a skimmer has crashed. A wild red glow illuminates... I just lost my place. A wild red glow illuminates the entire northern part of the valley, blossoms of flame visible even through the sandstorm. Against that glow I can see scores of armored figures running, firing, flying, falling. One form is smaller than the rest, and it is unarmored. The barbed giant is standing next to it. The smaller form, still silhouetted against the fiery glow of pure destruction, is attacking the giant, pounding small fists against barbs and spikes. Shit! I crawl toward the hawking mat, cannot find it in the storm, rub sand out of my eyes, crawl in a circle, and feel cloth under my right palm. In the seconds I have been off the mat, it has become almost buried beneath the sand. Digging like a frenzied dog, I unearth the flight designs, activate the mat, and fly toward the fading glow. The two figures are no longer visible, but I have kept the presence of mind to take a compass reading. 2 lance bolts scorch the air, 1 centimeters above my prone body, 1 millimeters under the mat. Shit! God damn! I shout to no one in particular. Father Captain DeSoya is only semi-conscious as he bounces along on Sergeant Gregorius's armored shoulder. DeSoya half senses other dark shapes running through the storm with them, occasionally firing plasma bolts at unseen targets, and he wonders if this is the rest of Gregorius's squad. Fading in and out of awareness, he desperately wishes he could see the girl again, talk to her. Gregorius almost runs into something, stops, orders his squad to close up. A Scarab armored fighting vehicle has dropped its camouflage shield and is sitting askew on a boulder. The left track is missing, and the barrels of the rear miniguns have been twisted like jail cell bars in a cartoon. The right eye blister is shattered and gaping.
Here,
Pants Gregorius, and carefully lowers Father Captain DeSoya through the blister. A second later, the sergeant pulls himself through, illuminating the interior of the Scarab with the torch beam on his energy lance. The driver's seat looks as if someone has spray-painted it red. The rear bulkheads seem to have been spattered with random colors, rather like some absurd pre-Hejira abstract art Father Captain DeSoya once saw in a museum. Only this metal canvas has been daubed with human parts. Sergeant Gregorius pulls him deeper into the tilted Scarab and leans the torch ship captain against the lower bulkhead. Two other suited figures squeeze through the shattered blister. DeSoya rubs blood and sand out of his eyes and says, "I'm all right." He is meant to say it in a command tone, but his voice is weak, almost childlike.
yes, sir.
Growls Gregorius. The sergeant is pulling his medkit from his belt pack. "I don't need that," DeSoya says weakly. "The suit." All combat suits have their own sealant and semi-intelligent dock liners. DeSoya is sure that for such minor slash or puncture wounds, the suit has already dealt with it. But now he looks down. His left leg has been all but severed. The impact-proof, energy-resistant, omnipolymer combat armor is hanging in shreds, like tattered rubber on a cheap tire. He can see the white of his femur. The suit has tightened into a crude tourniquet around his upper thigh, saving his life, but there are half a dozen serious puncture wounds in his chest armor, and the med lights on his chest display are blinking red. "Oh, Jesus," whispers Father Captain DeSoya. It is a prayer.
It's all right,
says Sergeant Gregorius, tightening his own tourniquet around the thigh.
We'll be getting you to a medic and lifting you to the ship's hospital in no time, sir.
He looks to the two suited figures crouched in exhaustion behind the front seats.
Key, Rettig.
Yes, Sergeant.
The smaller of the two figures looks up.
Milliken Hort.
Dead, Sergeant. The thing got him with the Sphinx.
Stay on the net,
says Sergeant Gregorius, and turns back to DeSoya. The non-com removes his gauntlet and touches huge fingers to one of the larger puncture wounds.
Does that hurt, sir?
DeSoya shakes his head. He cannot even feel the touch.
All right,
says the sergeant, but he looks displeased. He begins calling on the tactical net. The girl, says Father Captain DeSoya. We have to find the girl.
Yes, sir,
says Gregorius, but continues calling on different channels. DeSoya listens now and can hear the babble. Look out! Christ, it's coming back! St. Bonaventure, you are venting into space! Say again, you are venting into...
Scorpion 1-9er to any controller.
Jesus! Scorpion 1-9er, left engine out, any controller! Can't see Valley! We'll divert! Jamie! Oh God!
Get off the net! God damn it, maintain calm discipline! Get off the fucking net!
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name.
Watch the fucking... Oh, shit! The fucking thing took a hit, but... Shit!
Multiple bogeys. Say again, multiple bogeys. Disregard fire control. There are multiple... This is interrupted by screams. Command 1, come in. Command 1, come in. Oh, Command 1, come in. Command 1, come in. Feeling consciousness draining from him like the blood pooling under his ruined leg, DeSoya flips down his visors. The tactical display is garbage. He keys the tight beam tight-beam comm channel to Barnes-Oven's command skimmer. "Commander, this is Father Captain DeSoya. Commander?" The line is no longer operative.
"The commander is dead, sir,"
says Gregorius, pressing an adrenaline ampule against DeSoya's bare arm. The Father Captain has no memory of his gauntlet and combat armor being removed.
I saw her skimmer go in on tactical before it all went to hell,"
continues the sergeant, wiring DeSoya's dangling leg to his upper thigh bone like someone tying down loose cargo.
"She's dead, sir. Colonel Brightson's not responding. Captain Aenea is not answering from the torch ship. The C3 ain't answering."
DeSoya fights to stay conscious. "What's happening, Sergeant?" Gregorius leans closer. His visors are up, and DeSoya sees for the first time that the giant is a black man.
"We had a phrase for this in the Marines before I joined the Swiss Guards, sir."
Charlie Fox, says Father Captain DeSoya, trying to smile.
"That's what you polite Navy types call it,"
agrees Gregorius. He gestures the other two troopers toward the broken blister. They crawl out. Gregorius lifts DeSoya and carries him out like a baby.
"In the Marines, sir," continues the sergeant, not even breathing heavily, "we called it a clusterfuck."
DeSoya feels himself fading. The sergeant sets him down on the sand.
"You stay with me, Captain! God damn it, you hear me! You stay with me!"
Gregorius is shouting. "What's your language, Sergeant?" says DeSoya, feeling himself sliding into unconsciousness, but unable and unwilling to do anything about it. "I'm a priest, remember. Taking the name of God in vain is a mortal sin." The blackness is closing in, and Father Captain DeSoya does not know if he has said the last sentence aloud or not. Just Shrike things. "15. Since I was a boy on the moors, standing apart to watch smoke from the peat fires rise from within the protective ring of circled caravans, waiting for the stars to appear, then seeing them cold and indifferent on the deepening lapis sky and wondering about my future while waiting for the call that would bring me into warmth and dinner, I have had a sense of the irony of things. So many important things pass quickly without being understood at the time. So many powerful moments are buried beneath the absurd. I saw this as a child. I have seen it throughout my life since then. Flying toward the fading orange light of the explosion, I suddenly came across the child. Aenea. My first glimpse had been of two figures, the small one attacking the large one, but when I arrived a moment later, sand howling and rasping around the bobbing hawking mat, there was only the girl. This is the way we looked to each other at that moment. The girl with an expression of shock and anger, eyes red and narrowed against the sand or from her fury at something, her small fists clenched, her shirt and loose sweater flapping like wild banners in the wind, her shoulder-length hair, brown but with blonde streaks that I would notice later, matted and blowing, her cheeks streaked with the muddy path of tears and snot, her rubber-soled canvas kid's shoes totally inappropriate to the adventure upon which she'd embarked, and her cheap backpack hanging from one shoulder. I must have been a wilder, less sane sight, a bulky, muscled, not very bright-looking 27-year-old lying flat on my belly on a flying carpet, my face largely obscured by the bandana and dark glasses, my short hair filthy and spiked in the wind, my pack also lashed over one shoulder, my vest and trousers filthy with sand and grime. The girl's eyes widened in recognition, but it took only a second for me to realize that she was recognizing the hawking mat, not me. "Get on!" I shouted. Armored forms ran by, firing as they went. Other shadows loomed in the storm. The girl ignored me. turning away as if to find the shape she had been attacking. I noticed then that her fists were bleeding. God damn him! She was shouting, almost weeping. God damn him! These were the first words I heard our Messiah utter. Get on! I shouted again, and began to dismount from the hawking mat to seize her. Aenea turned, looking at me for the first time, and, somehow clearly over the rasping sandstorm, said, Take that mask off. I remembered the bandana. Lowering it, I spit sand as red mud. As if satisfied, the girl stepped closer and jumped onto the mat. Now we were both sitting on the hovering, bobbing carpet, the girl behind me, our backpacks squeezed between us. I tugged the bandana back up and shouted, Hang on to me! She ignored me and gripped the edges of the mat. I hesitated a moment, tugging my sleeve back to study my wrist chronometer. Less than 2 minutes remained before the ship was scheduled to perform its touch-and-go at Kronos Keep. I couldn't even find the entrance to the third cave tomb in that time. Perhaps I could never find it in this carnage. As if to underline that point, a tracked scarab suddenly plowed over a dune, almost grinding us under its treads before it wheeled left, guns firing at something out of sight to the east. Hang on! I shouted again and keyed the mat to full acceleration, gaining altitude as I went, watching my compass and trying to keep flying north until we left the valley. This was no time to crash into a cliff wall. A great stone wing passed under us. Sphinx! I shouted back to the girl, huddling behind me. I realized in an instant how stupid this comment was. She had just come from that tomb. Guessing our altitude to be several hundred meters, I leveled off and increased our speed. The deflection shield came on, but sand still whirled around us within the nacelle of trapped air. We shouldn't hit anything at this altitude, I began, shouting over my shoulder again, but was interrupted by the looming shape of a skimmer flying directly at us in the storm cloud. I did not have time to react, but somehow I did, diving the mat so quickly that only the containment field held us in place, the shape of the skimmer passing over us with less than a meter to spare. The little hawking mat tumbled and twisted in the monster machine's lift-wake. Heck and spit, said Aenea behind me. Hell and shit! It was the second utterance I heard from our Messiah-to-be. Leveling off again, I peered over the edge of the mat, trying to make out anything on the ground. It was folly to be flying so high. Certainly every tactical sensor, detector, radar, and targeting imager in the area was tracking us. Except for the taste of chaos we had left behind, I had no idea why they hadn't fired at us yet. Unless... I looked over my shoulder again. The girl was leaning close to my back, shielding her face from the stinging sand. Are you all right? I called. She nodded, her forehead touching my back. I had the sense that she was crying, but I could not be sure. I'm Raul Endymion, I shouted. Endymion, she said, pulling her head back. Her eyes were red, but dry. Yes. You're Aenea? I stopped. I could not think of anything intelligent to say. Checking the compass, I adjusted our direction of flight and hoped that our altitude was sufficient to clear the dunes here beyond the valley. Without much hope, I looked up, wondering if the plasma trail of the ship would be visible through the storm. I saw nothing. Uncle Martin sent you, said the girl. It was not a question. Yes, I shouted back. We're going, well, the ship. I'd arranged for it to meet us at Kronos Keep, but we're late. A bolt of lightning ripped the clouds not 30 meters to our right. Both the child and I flinched and ducked. To this day, I do not know if it was a lightning discharge or someone shooting at us. For the 100th time on this endless day, I cursed the crudeness of this ancient flying device. No speed indicators, no altimeter. The wind roar beyond the deflection field suggested that we were traveling at full speed, but with no guide points except the shifting curtains of cloud, it was impossible to tell. It was as bad as hurtling through the labyrinth, but at least there the autopilot program had been dependable. Here, even with the entire Swiss Guard after us, I would have to decelerate soon. The bridle range of mountains with their vertical cliffs lay somewhere dead ahead. At almost 300 clicks per hour, we should reach the mountains and the keep within 6 minutes. I had checked my chronometer when we accelerated. Now I glanced at it again. 4.5 minutes. According to maps I had studied, the desert ended abruptly at the bridle cliffs. I would give it another minute. Things happened simultaneously then. Suddenly, we were out of the dust storm. It did not taper off, we just flew out of it, the way one would emerge from under a blanket. At that second, I saw that we were pitched slightly down, or the ground here was rising, and that we were going to strike some huge boulders within seconds. Aenea shouted. I ignored her, tweaked the control designs with both hands. We lifted over the boulders with enough G-force to press us heavily against the hawking mat, and at that instant both the child and I saw that we were 20 meters from a cliff face and flying into it. There was no time to stop. Theoretically, I knew, Sholokov's design for the hawking mat allowed it to fly vertically, the incipient containment field keeping the passenger, theoretically his beloved niece, from tumbling off backward. Theoretically. It was time to test that theory. Aenea's arms came around my midsection as we accelerated into a 90-degree climb. The mat took all of the 20 meters of free space to initiate the climb, and by the time we were vertical, the granite of the rock face was centimeters beneath us. Instinctively, I leaned full forward and grabbed the rigid front of the carpet, trying not to lean on the flight control designs as I did so. Equally instinctively, Aenea leaned forward and increased her bear hug on my midsection. The effect was that I could not breathe for the minute or so it took the carpet to clear the top of the cliffs. I tried not to look back over my shoulder during the duration of the climb. 1,000 or more meters of open space directly beneath me might have been more than my overworked nerves could stand. We reached the top of the cliffs. Suddenly there were stairs carved there, stone terraces, gargoyles, and I leveled the carpet. The Swiss Guard had set up observation posts, detector stations, and anti-aircraft batteries here along the terraces and balconies on the east side of Kronos Keep. The castle itself, carved out of the stone of the mountain, loomed more than 100 meters above us, its overhanging turrets and higher balconies directly above us. There were more Swiss Guard on these flat areas. All of them were dead. Their bodies, still clad in impermeable impact armor, were sprawled in the unmistakable attitudes of death. Some were grouped together, their lacerated forms looking as if a plasma bomb had exploded in their midst. But Pack's body armor could withstand a plasma grenade at that distance. These corpses had been shredded. "Don't look!" I called over my shoulder, slowing the mat as we banked around the south end of the keep. It was too late. Aenea stared with wide eyes. "Damn him!" she cried again. "Damn who?" I asked. But at that moment we flew out over the... Whoops. "Damn who?" I asked, but at that moment we flew out over the garden area on the south end of the keep, and saw what was there. Burning scarabs and an overturned skimmer littered the landscape. More bodies lay thrown like toys scattered by a vicious child. A CPB Lancet, its beams capable of reaching to low orbit, lay shattered and burning by an ornamental hedge. The consul's ship hovered on a tail of blue plasma 60 meters above the central fountain. Steam billowed up and around it. Bettik stood at the open airlock and beckoned us on. I flew us directly into the airlock, so quickly that the android had to leap aside, and we actually skittered down the polished corridor. "Go!" I shouted, but either Bettik had already given the command or the ship did not require it. Inertial compensators kept us from being smashed to jelly as the ship accelerated, but we could hear the fusion reaction drive soar, hear the scream of atmosphere from beyond the hull, as the consul's spaceship climbed away from Hyperion and entered space again for the first time in 2 centuries. And that is where we will call it for today. Probably that will be it for this week. Let me take a quick gander and see if I have a functional mock-up of what my schedule is going to look like for next week. And so I can cobble something together and post it and tell people. Let's see, what do we got? So yeah, things are moving along in Endymion. Our boy Raul has gotten Aenea. They've gotten into their spaceship. Bettik's there, and they are ready to make flight. Take flight, whatever. That is the wrong image. What do we got? Tentatively... Actually, I might be able to do Saturday as well. Ooh. So... Let's see. I'll try to do this Saturday. Monday and Friday, I think, I can do next week. Thursday is a question mark. I'll try to do Saturday. I'm not going to promise it, but I will try to do Saturday as well. This Saturday. That appears to have opened up for me. So Saturday, Monday, Friday, I guess, for now. We'll see if that manages to remain true. I'll keep people posted, but that's what I'll post in the Discord. So yeah, we are now well and truly underway with a pretty great adventure story and quite a nice love story to boot. Frank Misers, thanks for tuning in. Happy New Year to you too. To everyone, really. Hopefully people enjoyed. It felt a little sketchy to me. I don't know, I was stumbling a bit more than I usually do, but whatever. Sergeant Gregorius we're going to hear more from. He's a bro. He's a character. We like Sergeant. We are a pro Sergeant Gregorius stream here. He is a cool dude. We're going to learn more about Mr. DeSoya, Father Captain DeSoya. We'll find out if he survives his leg near severing. And there will be more Shrike things. The Shrike is going to have an interesting role in this book. That will become clear as we move further along. And we're going to hear more from Aenea, and people can cringe when I do what I'm going to do to Aenea, but unfortunately, that's the voice that got stuck in my head when I was reading it last. So now you all get to suffer with it. So enjoy that. Let's see, anything else salient? So yeah, we're going to keep plowing through this. We're going at roughly 50 pages a pop, give or take. Yeah, and that's taking like 3 hours, a little under. Let me... Where is a convenient stopping point for the next stream? I think we can go a little longer than that one. Chapters are relatively short. They're not super duper long. There are some that are long, and they are going to occasionally throw ones at us that are very long at certain points in the book. I want to say, namely, in The Rise of Endymion, we have a couple pretty long ones. Yeah, so we are going to focus on reading one book at a time this year, as opposed to 3 different books at a time. Yes, this means less variety per week, but it means you'll get books completed rather quickly in comparison. So I am going to read through both Endymion and The Rise of Endymion
reading through the omnibus. There's also a short story novella tie-in that I'll do. That's part of a short story collection entitled Worlds, Enough, and Time. Is the name of the short story collection. The story itself is something or others of the Helix? Something like that. I'm sort of coin tossing whether I'll do the whole short story collection or just that. I'll probably do the whole short story collection. There's some bangers in there. There's some really good ones in there. It's a good short story collection. After we get through all that, it's going to be a while before we get through that. I don't know if I'll go straight to doing Citeen or do a Greg Egan. I'll probably do a Greg Egan, then do Citeen, yeah. Tentatively we'll do a Greg Egan and then do Citeen by CJ Cherry. I'll figure out what I'm going to do for the Greg Egan. I'm pretty low on short story collections and quite high on actual novels. What's the one that he wrote after? Was it Distress? Which ones have we done? We did Quarantine and we did Permutation City, right? I think. So I think it's Distress. That's what my gut is telling me. And I cannot remember which one Distress is. So it'll be a new experience for all of us. Is that where he starts doing the utopian stuff? Post-human utopia stuff? Sort of utopia stuff. There's still like... Or is that the one after? I can't remember. I do want to get around to Schild's Ladder, though. I'm probably mispronouncing that. That's going to be a couple away. I will wind up reading on stream everything that I've got by Egan, which is most of what he's come out with. There's one or two older short story collections that I have to double check if I have the contents of. I'm pretty sure I do. That were like published only in Australia, I think. Something about a camera. I might not have that one. I gotta look that up. That's stuff from like the 80s, I think, when it was very early in their career. So yeah, I think tentatively it would be Distress. We would do... I can't remember which one that is. I think that's one where it's post-human. I think we might have some mathematical equations and graphs to worry about. We definitely have some charts and graphs to worry about in the Clockwork Rocket trilogy, or Arrow of Time trilogy, rather. I'm not quite sure how we'll handle those. I'll see if I can get an EPUB, and if those have it in there, I can at least display those. Anything else? Salient things. But yeah, after we do a Greg Egan, we'll do... Yeah, I like that plan. We'll do Citeen and its sequel, Regenesis. That will take us a while to get through. And after that, I'm going to probably do some relatively recent things. I want to do Red Noise. Red Noise I thoroughly enjoyed. It is Yojimbo in space. It's excellent. It's also more than Yojimbo in space. It does some interesting other things. It's quite good. I do want to do Alien Clay by Adrian Tchaikovsky. That one I read and was quite pleased with. I was somewhat less pleased with the Mountain in the Sea. Mountain in the Sea? Yeah, Mountain in the Sea. There's a lot of cool ideas in there, but like the narrative kind of... It feels like there should be either a sequel or it wanted to have a lot more going on, particularly towards the end. It's still good. I still recommend it. Also, our boy Peter Watts should be coming out with his latest Sunflower novel soon. Let me check if he's done that. He probably has not. No, he is doing some minor spoilers for it, though, as of the 7th of December. I don't even know what he's calling it. Let me... I hate to check Amazon for it, but let's do it anyway. Peter Watts. No, there's no name for the thing yet. Oh, but there is like a bound 3-book collection of Blind Sight, The Colonel, and Echopraxia. The Colonel's pretty short, though. It's like in between. What is that, one bound volume, or is that... Oh, that's only on Kindle. Who cares about that? Wow, wow. That's Jerry Pournelle. That is not Peter Watts. Why is that even there? Anything else? No, nothing there. No, he doesn't have a name for it, which is unfortunate. It's probably... I think he's done most of his releases through Tor, the publishing company, as in a rock formation. Let me check the Tor website, see if they have anything. Books.com, maybe? I don't know what their website is. Oh, they're under Macmillan now? Whack. I somehow knew that. I think I already knew that. Yeah, they've got... If you want to talk about monocultures and monopolies, the publishing ecosystem, the book publishing ecosystem right now is like really frightening. Let's try Peter Watts, see if they have any advertisement there for it. Nope. Was the Colonel released in any physical format? I should probably find out. Why? They list all these children's books. Surely Peter Watts wouldn't... Oh, because somebody's named Peter. I hate search algorithms now. Nah, just ebook. Whatever, which is what I've got. I actually have it when it was published as like an article from for a sci-fi magazine, which is what I read from when I did my reading of it. It's good. It's good. It provides a little additional context for a certain character in Echopraxia, which, incidentally, you can acquire by going onto my Discord and looking for pins. I've got it pinned, a download location for that. I have not had the stones to re-upload it, or unprivate it, as the case may be, after I got knocked on. I didn't get an actual... I mean, I had a copyright strike, but it wasn't like... they didn't take my channel down for it. They were like, oh, and I was like, okay, don't do this. If it had been just like something petty, I would have contested it, but it was like from an actual audiobook company. So I was like, well, noted, noted. Recent subscribers, wow. Why do I even look at this? Oh, right, so somebody named English teacher Charles has subscribed. I guess that's a good sign. Let me see recent comments here. What do we got? Someone marking their place on Hyperion. Yeah. What do we got? More people doing timestamps. Thank you. We appreciate those. Oh, wow. They have AI-generated responses that I can post? What the fuck? That's the saddest thing I've ever seen. God. What are we doing as a species, man? I appreciate the kind words. Glad I can provide some good background listening. Yeah, right. Okay. What do we got? Something recent that I missed. No, I left a response to that one, I think. Oh, it's just showing ones that I haven't responded to. That's what the issue is. Show me ones I have. Whatever. Okay. That's enough ego trip for me. I don't actually check that stuff very often. I should probably check it more often in case I get a copyright strike. But I do check comments. So feel free to leave those. I don't say that because it tweaks the algorithm in my favor. It does. It does, I think. But I don't make money from these. People have repeatedly asked if I have some means of donating. I don't at this time, but I am looking into Patreon to see if I can do that in a fair and balanced way that works for other people and for me. I know they take a pretty deep cut. I think they're owned by Amazon, which is those are two pretty significant strikes against it. So basically, like, if you're donating like $5, you're not actually donating $5. You're donating like $3 and change or something. It's 30%, I think. I have to double check the math. They also put it through like multiple different third parties, so it winds up being even less than that, or even more. They don't get as much of a cut, but like it's done. So I'll look and see through other donation sites if people want to do that, and they can put their money where their mouth is. Other than that, that's it for today. I will try to do something Saturday. I won't promise it. But next Monday and Friday should be a lock. Those should be a non-issue. Yup. I think we're good. Okay. Hope people enjoyed. There is much more Endymion to enjoy going forward. And hopefully we enjoy the romp. It is a good tale. It's a good one. Alrighty. I'll see you all later. Stay safe, stay sane, be toasty if you're in a cool place, and cool if you're in a toasty place, I guess. And be decent to each other. I have got at some point to get around to changing my channel headers and my stream descriptions, because I keep forgetting to remove the hard set, what are they called? The hard set time frames that I do it at. I will generally keep to a noon Eastern Standard Time frame, which I know isn't ideal for nearly anybody, but it allows me to bracket out a time that I'm going to have a good amount of energy for a couple hours without wanting to take a nap or too bleary to do anything. Anyway, it's about the recordings more than anything else, dodgy as they might be. Alrighty, with that, stay safe, stay sane, be decent to each other. I'll see you all next time. Toodaloo!